Good evening to all colleagues from UJ. Welcome back to all former colleagues from UJ, including those who crossed the Yukske. Prof. Mboa, it's good to see you again, back at your old stomping ground. It's good to see everybody. In fact, I mean, if I look at the crowd, it looks like a mini future cabinet of Zimbabwe, of a future government of national unity. Yeah, I mean, there was one before, and many in the room supported the second deputy prime minister, but clearly they have plans to elevate him. What a pleasure to again being asked by colleague, friend, mentor. I've known Prof. Mutambara for 33 years. I hope you share my pain. For 33 years, I've known him. We were actually, Prof, we were actually contemporaries at Oxford. We started the same year, and we staged the coup against Professor Mutambara. Against Professor Adekeya Adebayo. He was the outgoing president of the Oxford Africa Society, but he wasn't really ready to relinquish power. So a representative from ZANU and from South Africa. You heard I didn't give a party name. We got together. We say to him, let this be bloodless. Just leave Professor Adebayo. And of course, Prof, he became the president. I became the social secretary. I was responsible for the parties. Quite literally, literally. I must say I was quite a crowd puller in my days. No, Prof, there was a time I used to be bold for speed. Now I'm bold for comfort. If you look at one of these books, the second volume in the series, you'll see some photos of mine there while we were gallivanting the dreaming spires of Oxford. Prof. Mutambara, myself, Prof. Adebayo, Mr. Kuseni Dlamini joined us. So they really believe in this Oxford mafia business, not me. So we used to, the dreaming spires. And there's a few photos of mine in there. So every time people see, they say, I send my son's photo to Prof. Mutambara so that I feature. They just can't believe I used to be a lean machine at some point. Welcome to the launch of yet another magnum opus, a serious contribution by, as I've said, colleague, friend, renowned academic in his own right. Prof. Mutambara is currently the director, and I'm just reading as I'm seeing it. Full professor. I mean, full of what? I don't know, but full professor of the Institute for the Future of Knowledge here at UJ. Literally a world-renowned academic specializing in robotics, hence the title of this very important manuscript we're launching tonight. But I just want to caution you, don't take him on politics and Pan-Africanism. I mean, here is really one of those widely read, versatile scholars, and to call him an eclectic scholar would not be to do justice to the man, but he can bring different disciplines and weave them into each other. when I went to Stanford, Professor Mutambara went to MIT and also spent time at NASA in the United States. He was a management consultant for McKinsey and Company in Chicago. He's, as I said, the former Deputy Prime Minister of Zimbabwe. Worked very closely with the then erudite President Robert Mugabe, and of course the Prime Minister Morgan Tsvangirai. And in one of the volumes, he really takes us meticulously through the workings of the government of national unity at the time. An engineer, an electrical engineer of note. Let me just end with two last points as I introduce Professor Mutambara. So I know our colleague, Mr. Kuseni Dlamini, still the chair of SAIA? Deputy chair, deputy prime minister, deputy. We all deputize. But I should just tell you, Hussein, you were at St. Peter's. St. Peter's. He was at Merton College. Now, Prof, by sheer accident, I just happened to go to Christchurch, where Harry Potter was shot, and Alice in Wonderland, and Chariots of Fire. So he was my small neighbor. Sorry, he attended the smaller college. But you'll find this fascinating. He was a contemporary of Liz Truss. Now, if you don't know who Liz Truss is, let me remind you, the shortest serving prime minister in British history. She didn't see it for 12 months. She did not last that long. I, on the other hand, went to the college that produced most British prime ministers, but that's the closest I came to power. The last thing I want to say, Prof, is that during our Oxford days, Prof. Adebayo, Prof. Mutambara, and myself, foolishly on my part, we declared an arms race against each other for who's going to produce more. Then we chose titles. Mine was imposed on me. We said, let's see whether Prof. Mutambara will become president of Zimbabwe before Prof. Adebayo becomes UN Secretary General. And then I apparently was going to become South Africa's Minister of Foreign Affairs. I can tell you, Prof. Mutambara came the closest to realizing his goal. What I can tell you about myself, I've had the privilege to host many foreign ministers. That's the closest I've come to being South Africa's Minister of Foreign Affairs. I don't know where they got the idea that I was even in the race. I mean, I would have had to sell my soul in order to become. Welcome to what promises to be a wonderful evening again. I would like to, in particular, welcome Professor Mashau, Daniel Mashau, our Dean of the Faculty of Engineering and the Built Environment here at UJ. Let me also welcome Professor Susie Graham. I keep saying this at all because it pains me. I mean, you know, yeah, it's not nice, Dean, when you report to your former students, you know, when she overtakes you and she becomes deputy dean and now she's the senior director for academic development and support, and yet she sat in my second year class. and I had to go to her to ask for copies of course outlines so that I can copy her course outlines. I mean, power is fascinating, how power has a way, to work itself out. Prof. Graham, it's always good to see you. Prof. Charles Mboa, we had great times while we were with UJ, you and I. Our meeting spot was B-Ring parking. That's where you and I met clandestinely. It's not possible anymore to meet clandestinely. I should just warn you. But former deputy dean, vice dean of the Faculty of Built Environment, and of course he was foolish enough to go to Pretoria just because the capital is there. He thought he would be closer to power. I've already introduced our colleague, fellow Rhodes Scholar, Mr. Kuseni Dlamini, chairperson of the council of the University of Pretoria. Sorry, Prof, I take everything back. I've just said about Pretoria, the wonderful partner university. Also chairman of the JSE listed Aspen Pharmacare Holdings. And I, of course, know Mr. Dlamini from his days at SAIA, and SAIA is one of the very few institutes that have survived for 30 years. There have been many casualties. Prof. Gomez, you are around, Prof. From Braamfontein, the university there in Brahmis. That's University, respected institution. I used to teach there, but I have to, like, really. Welcome, Prof. A close partner in crime of Professor Mutambara. You know what engineers can do. I mean, they get up to many stuff, play around with hacking and all of those things. And collapses of buildings. Let me just see who's next. Roy Masamba, Human Capital Executive. Vodacom, MultiChoice, Naspers, Airtel. I'm willing to take a retainer from any one of those companies. But welcome. Where is Roy? Roy? Good to see you. They were Bell Hummels between 1987 and 1990, foolishly trying to take on President Robert Mugabe during his prime time. I mean, how could they do that? And of course, President Mugabe made sure that Professor Mutambara goes into exile in England at Oxford. Maxwell Gomera. Maxwell is the United Nations Development Program's representative to South Africa. I got that entirely right?
You got it right.
Exactly.
For an engineer.
Yeah. All fellow engineers, but all associates of Professor Mutambara. Mr. Henry Mutondoro. Andrew? Welcome. Andrew, esteemed founder and senior pastor of Oasis Christian Academy, IT specialist, executive director of Mega World College, publisher, author. And then, of course, we should be closed out by, given geopolitical shifts that are going on, we should be closed out by a powerful state. We'll be closed out by Professor David Munyai, who heads up the Confucius Institute and the Center for Africa-China Studies. So we have to close out with a powerful person. I'm certainly looking forward to a fantastic evening. To all those of you who's joining us in the clouds or from the clouds, welcome. I don't always know when they say store your information on the clouds. I go out and I check the weather if there are clouds, and then I decide, okay, I'll store it. Yeah, some of us are in the business of trying to demystify 4IR. Some, like our author tonight, are in the business of promoting it with all its evils. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues, Professor Arthur Mutambara. Oh, no, sorry. How can I skip the dean? I mean, I just have a tendency to, like, you know, do career limiting moves. Professor Daniel Ashau, Executive Dean from our Faculty of Engineering and Built Environment. Prof, we've come a long way. Always good to see you. Keep up the good work, and good luck with managing people like Arthur. The floor is yours, Prof.
Good evening. It's really my honor to be here today and celebrate with you as we celebrate the great efforts of Professor Arthur Mutambara on the book launch of the Design and Analysis of Control Systems Driving the Fourth Industrial Revolution. Now, when Prof. Mutambara invited me to come and speak at the book launch, I looked at the list of the speakers and I realized Professor Lainsbeck, and I told him as I came in here that, you know, look at the heavyweights are here. He didn't understand what I was talking about. I was talking about heavyweight in the scientific world. He assumed that I was saying heavyweight in another sense, which I wasn't meaning that. So, but thank you very much. It's really a great honor to be here. And when we meet in a place like this and talk about this kind of knowledge and information, you know, us, and I'll use us as in terms of Africa, we are known as people who do not who like telling stories and not recording these things. So when we have an opportunity today to look at what Professor Mutambara has done, it's really a something to marvel at, because I looked at the book and I counted the number of pages, and I tried to ask myself how long it will take me to write a book this big. And I realized it was bigger than my Bible. I try to read my Bible every year, but this one will take me a lot longer. And Prof. Mutambara, we are really grateful for taking the time and the effort to do so. It's really something that we appreciate. You know, in the fourth industrial revolution, putting things in a storage medium is important for us and for future generations. If you were to tell a story and hope somebody remembers it, us as human beings have a certain amount of bandwidth. It's not a lot. There's many things you can remember. Someone, I read his book, was talking about the problem with memory, that you remember things, but you remember them sometimes in the wrong context. You know, it's when you are getting into an aeroplane that you remember that you needed to buy sugar, but there's nothing you can do about it. But you do remember, I have groceries I have to do, but you remember them not in the right place. But although that may be a weakness, sort of might be seen as a weakness of the human mind is actually able to do a lot more, although not in the same way as a computer would do them. So when you look at writing, writing is one of the creations, the human creations that the mind has made. And it's a powerful tool, because if we did not write anything, we'll probably only keep about 99, maybe 1% of the things we know. Because we know so much, but if we do not reduce that to writing, if we don't reduce that to the next generation, there's very little that we can tell them. Maybe my dad If he didn't write anything, he would tell me about one day when he went hunting and met a lion, and that will be the only story he could tell me. But if he's able to write it, he's able to tell me a lot more about what he has been through and what are his experiences. So the opportunity now that we have of being able to write allows us to keep information throughout many generations. Now, when we are sitting here, we are able to know things that took place before we were even there, and be able to use them to do more things with them. I was thinking about writing, Prof. Mutambara, and I was telling myself that, all these first, second, and third, and fourth industrial revolutions came after writing. Writing was there many, many years before. But these industrial revolutions have impacted writing. Believe it or not, I have read about 86 books last year. 86 books. Now, how was I able to do that? I was able to do that because I live in Pretoria, in case you want to know. I live in Pretoria, and every day I have to drive to UJ, which takes me about an hour, at least an hour. And I have to drive back, which takes me almost more than an hour again. And during that time, I'm able to go through audiobooks. So now it's something that was put in writing that has been transcribed into audio. So I just get into my car, then I don't actually see this long route from Pretoria to Johannesburg, because I'm going through an audiobook. Right now, I'm going through the book Uptime. It's written by forgot her name, but I do know that she works at Google, and she's looking at how we become productive and the things that we need to do. One of the things that I've learned from her is identifying your 3 top priorities that you need to work on daily. So I'm going through that, but it's just an amazing technology that through the fourth industrial revolution, what was writing has now been transcribed to where now I'm able to listen audio, because I'm driving, I'm looking at the road, but I'm able to hear a book. Just takes me 2 days to go through that whole book. And in most of the books that I've gone through, I want to be honest and say that I learn only 1 or 2 things. I don't learn a lot of things. I don't learn hundreds of things, but only 1 or 2 things. But I'm able to do that every day because of the technology of the fourth industrial revolution, where we are now. I was thinking that, Prof. Mutambara, I know you're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. The next thing I want is where I take this book and put it inside my brain. Just looking at it, and then everything gets into my brain, and then all those equations, all those control equations get into my brain. If you can get there, I will know that we have really achieved the goal of this industrial revolution, because it will mean that after looking at a book, maybe scanning it through, and then I have all that knowledge, you can ask me any questions. And those of you who are lecturers, you can ask me that, and I'll give you answers. I know that Elon Musk is working on that. I do wish that they achieved that during my lifetime. You see, I'm old now. I'm about to retire soon, so I don't have a long time to go. But before I get there, I wish the creators and the workers on the fourth industrial revolution will get me to a system where I'm able to get all of these things into my brain, and then I could be able to regurgitate the book. A little bit about myself. I'm going to sit down, and I can talk a long time. That's why I'm a dean of engineering at UJ. I studied at Brown University in Rhode Island, and I'm probably among the first black people in this country to work on the AI, artificial intelligence. I did my thesis in 1995, PhD thesis in 1995 on speaker recognition using artificial neural networks. So I do know a little bit. Now, that's not my day job. My day job is to tell other people where to sit, like Prof. Lensberg was saying. But I did get my PhD in 1995 on AI, artificial neural networks. So I do know a little bit of the things he's talking about here. I do know one of the courses I never liked at school was control systems. So I do know that I look at it and say, wow, I'm glad this is passed behind me. But there are others who are coming after me who need to hear from Prof. Mutambara and hear what he has to say. Professor Lensberg, you wanted to bring him. You have an opportunity to bring him here now to come and speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Executive Dean. Let me just comment on a few things you've said. I mean, the way you said you live in Pretoria, it's almost like you wanted some sympathy. I mean, it's your choice. I mean, you made the choice, so, you know, it is what it is. And I must tell you, but before I do that, let me just like protect myself. You are all protected by me. I'm the chair tonight. I have the power, and I'm also protecting myself. But, you know, it was very interesting when Prof said he looked at the book. It's thicker than his Bible. Where do you find the time? But they are the ones that put us under pressure every day to write these things, the deans. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. But Prof. Mutambara, on a serious note, what the dean was saying to you, please find a way of bringing out an audio version for him of the book. Some of us will also buy the memory stick or the disc, but please, that's what Prof is saying. Prof, thank you very much for your presence, for your leadership, for your stewardship in the university. That's great. And I know, of course, why you had to tell us you did your PhD at Brown. You just wanted to like get these Oxford people to come down to earth a bit. So thank you very much, Prof. A round of applause for Prof. And without further ado, yeah, the man of the moment, Deputy Prime Minister, you know, head of the Oxford Society, now the future of knowledge, and playing around with artificial intelligence. I mean, how can intelligence be artificial? Is it even real? Professor Mutambara.
Thank you very much, Professor Landsberg, for that propaganda. Design and analysis of control systems driving the fourth industrial revolution. That's the book we're launching today. Thank you so very much, everyone, for coming. That's the book and the back of the book. The structure of my presentation is number one, what is a control system? You know, so that we have a rudimentary understanding of control systems. What do we mean when we say the fourth industrial revolution? And what is the link with AI? AI is part of the fourth industrial revolution. The fourth industrial revolution is bigger than AI. Why a research book on control systems? Why now? Why are we doing this? And then a bit of an introduction to what we call AI-based control systems. What do we mean by that? Then we summarize the content of the book and show some video demos of complex control systems, of complex applications of AI. Then we conclude. What is a control system? I know we are a very broad church. Some of you are PhDs in engineering. Some of you are PhDs in international relations. So we need to bring you up to speed. A control system is a network that seeks to influence the behavior of a dynamic system in pursuit of a specified objective or a desired response. That's it. A network that seeks to influence the behavior of a dynamic system in pursuit of a specified objective or a desired response. Put differently, it is an interconnection of components forming the configuration that will facilitate the achievement of those specified outcomes for a dynamic system. Let's give some examples. There are 4 components of a control system. There's a plant, the thing you're trying to control. There's a sensor, which measures what is going on around the plant. Then there's a controller, which is the decision maker or the brain of the system. Then there's the actuator, which forces the control to happen. Very simple. When you're driving your car and you want to go this way and the car is going that way, your eyes will see where you're going and say, no, I don't want to go there. A message sent to the brain and the brain says, turn the vehicle. So you are trying to go that way and the direction is incorrect. So when you do that, the plant we are trying to control is the car. The sensor are your eyes. The controller is the driver. And the steering wheel will change direction. That's a control system. Trying to make sure the car goes in the direction that you want. The plant is the car. The sensor are your eyes. And then the controller is the driver who makes the decision. And how do you move the car? The actuator is the steering. When you are doing speed control, you're on the highway and you want to drive at 80 kilometers an hour. You look at your speedometer, you see I'm at 100. You say, no, that's not right. I must slow down. Then you put your paddle down and you put the paddle up and then you reduce the speed. If you're going too slow, you put the speed, the paddle down. So that's human speed control of a car. Cruise control of a car. You want to go at 80 kilometers an hour, and then in the system, there's a control system that makes sure that you go at 80 kilometers an hour. Room temperature. You want to control the temperature of this room using a thermostat. The thermostat measures, you say, I want this temperature to be 25 degrees. The thermostat measures and says, you are at 30. And then you reduce the amount of electricity or you reduce the amount of gas being burnt to lower down the temperature. These are basic examples of control systems. Process, sensor, controller, actuator. If you remove the sensor, you have what's called an open loop system. Okay? In terms of a diagram, that's what we mean by a control system. But now I think Professor Landsberg has some rudimentary understanding now of control system. He can design one. Okay? In the example of the car direction, the car is the process or the plant, the driver's eyes are the sensors, and the actuator is the steering wheel. That's all we mean by control systems. That's all. We can apply it in government. Yes. If you want the GDP of South Africa to be $700 billion, you can set up a control system, Kuseni, that allows you to achieve that. It's much more complex than engineering. So that's why you do it, because you are complex people. You can apply control systems in a government, in a university, in society. But what's important is what is called modeling. You must have a mathematical representation of your car, the mathematical representation of the country, the mathematical representation of the robot. It's called modeling, where you start with the dynamic system, write down some equations, you build a model. Enough of control systems. The fourth industrial revolution. What do we mean? AI is not the revolution. It is the key driver, but there are so many other elements which are not AI, which are part of the revolution. Why are we talking about revolution? The first one was about water and steam. The second one was about electric power. The third revolution was about electronics and information technology. Now we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution from around 2011. Why do we call it a revolution? Because of the velocity of the changes. Why a revolution? Because of the scope of the changes. Why a revolution? Because of what we call systems impact. The growth of AI and other technologies in education, in commerce, in governance. This is what we mean by the fourth industrial revolution. What are the elements? Of course, AI. But it's more than AI. It's intelligent algorithms. It's augmented reality, human augmentation, big data, Internet of Things, Internet of Everything, nanotechnology. See, nanotechnology is not AI. It's about miniaturization, 10 power minus 9. Yes, you can apply AI in that field, but nanotechnology stands alone as the new field. Of course, autonomous vehicles, drones, and driverless cars are driven by AI. 3D printing. Here at UJ, we can print a house using a computer. We've done it in civil engineering. Again, that's a technology of its own called 3D printing. Yes, you can use elements of AI in there, but as a technology, 3D printing is a game changer. Biotechnology, synthetic biology, material science, renewable energy. These are the key drivers of this revolution. Energy storage, Professor Gomez is here. Now, the major problem we have when we say climate change, we have not solved the issue of battery energy storage systems. If you think about the amount of energy we get from the sun every day, if we were to store just 5% of that energy, we can do away with all fossil fuels. So the area called battery energy storage systems is very, very undeveloped right now, BESS. We are trying to work in this area, and that area is about lithium, it's about material science, it's not AI, it's about storage. But once we get BESS correct, we have solved climate change. These are the drivers of this revolution. Robotics and mechatronics, of course. Then quantum computing. I need to say a bit about quantum computing. It's a different way of doing computing altogether. Cloud computing, blockchain, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, all these revolutions, mechatronics is defined as follows. All these few. At the center, we have mechatronics. Quantum computing is very important that we understand this one. It involves physics, computer science, and mathematics to do a different way of computing, different from the current computers, in a faster way than classical computers. It involves quantum mechanics, the area of physics that studies the behavior of particles at a microscopic level. Work in progress. This is serious work in progress, and if we can solve this, because we're talking about equations that describe particles at a very microscopic level, and we are defining what are called quantum bits. You are very familiar with bits and bytes. I want 10 megabytes of data. I want 10 gigabytes. When quantum computer comes into play, Dean Marshall, no one will be talking about we'll talk about gigabytes and megabytes. We have to invent a new language altogether. Quantum computing is a very different way of doing computing, but it has not been solved yet. Just like AI. AI was there in 1995. The professor just told you. But it has not been developed. The technology was not through. Now we have lots of data, lots of computational power. AI is taken off. The same applies to quantum computing. The ideas are there, but it has not been developed. When it does happen, Dr. Munyai, when we have qubits, we are going to have another revolution in the making. Forget 4IR, forget AI. When you combine artificial intelligence and quantum computing, it's a completely different world. Another revolution in the making. But for now, let's stick to what we have. The 4IR is what we have at the moment. Artificial intelligence is the DNA of the 4IR. I won't spend too much time on definitions, but I want to make sure that you know that when you say AI, there's a technical definition. I know it's AI. There are definitions. Please respect the field. Chris, when you say AI, there's a technical definition. When you say machine learning, there's a technical definition. When you say single task AI, please, let's make sure, you can Google it or use ChatGPT. But always remember, there is a definition for artificial general intelligence. When you say AI, what do we mean? the intelligence programmed into and demonstrated by machines. This capability is in contrast to natural intelligence manifested by human beings and animals. Okay, that's a definition there. You must get up to speed with that. And artificial general intelligence, that's another one. It's different from AI. Artificial general intelligence, this is the intelligence of a machine that can learn, understand, and execute any intellectual task that a human being can do. Multitask AI. You know, it's one thing to build a robot that walks around, yeah? A robot that gives you water, a robot that talks, a robot. What about having a robot that has all those things in one robot? It can walk, it can give you coffee, it can talk, it can play soccer. It's harder. Most of the robots we have are single task AI. The dream is artificial general intelligence, AGI. A machine that can learn, understand, and perform various tasks. The idea is to have in one device the ability to perform multiple complex tasks. And of course, this is linked to the field of what is called strong AI. Conscious, self-aware. No, we haven't gotten there yet, but it's work in progress. Can we build a machine that is self-aware, that is conscious? Can we build a machine that has intentionality? Intentionality means, today I'm going to disobey the coder. I know there's a code in me instructing me to navigate around this, but I'm not going to do it because I don't want to. Intention in a machine. Can we do that? Open question. Because you do defy, I mean, Chris, you defy the dean and the senior director when you want to. You've just been doing it here. So we want in the machine the ability to say, yes, I know what you told me to do. I know the instructions in the code, but I'm not going to do it because I don't want. Today, I don't want. Okay, again, please, machine learning is a subset of AI. Deep learning is a subset of artificial intelligence. So when you hear this person say, I'm doing artificial intelligence and machine learning, you can't say that. It's like saying, I'm going to Africa and South Africa. I'm going to Africa, including South Africa. I'm going to Africa, in particular South Africa. I'm studying AI, in particular machine learning. Not, I'm studying machine learning. And please, go and look at the definition, please. Okay? Generative AI is the interesting one with ChatGPT. This one, basically, all we're saying is creating new knowledge, creating new pictures, generation of new content. That's why ChatGPT is so interesting. It's part of what's called generative AI, where the AI is creating new pictures, new videos, new text, new ideas. That's why you have ChatGPT, BARD, which has been named at Google, Stable Diffusion, and so on. Why a new research book in control systems? Why do we have to do research and produce this book? Well, because AI is affecting everything. It's affecting every field, affecting every sector. Engineering, education is no exception. The curriculum for control systems must be radically changed. And just to show you the importance of control systems, we have control systems in electrical engineering, in mechanical engineering, in industrial engineering, in computer and information engineering, in chemical engineering, in biomedical engineering, in aerospace, and also mechatronics and robotics. So it's a very important subject that affects so many sectors, some to a less extent than others. So we need to revisit its teaching, its research framework, because the AI revolution is there. There must be radical changes in teaching, learning, and research with respect to control systems. That's why this is the motivation behind the book. More significantly, there's now a new field called AI-based design and analysis of control systems. The books don't exist that handle this subject, so we must write and make sure we get into the program. Also, there are new methods for those who've done controls. We used to use a lot of MATLAB. Now there's Simlink, which is part of MATLAB, LabVIEW. These are new computer added techniques. So we need a new book that covers all these methods and enable the students to use the techniques to learn about control systems. There are new applications now: the drones, driverless cars, autonomous mining vehicles, intelligent fleet management systems. There are no books that speak to building a control system for drones, building a control system for driverless cars. That is the motivation and the driver behind the book. So many space vehicles, Falcon 9 from Elon Musk, the Chinese, the Japanese, the Indians, Russians, and the individuals are going into space. What kind of control system can you have to drive these vehicles? I hope very soon we'll have an African one here. You see, the Russians are doing stuff, the Indians, where are you, African? Wake up, Mutambara. These vehicles are using control systems. How can we teach our students how to build these systems? We need a book to do that. In terms of humanoids, we now have very interesting vehicles, Boston Dynamics with Atlas, Asimo from Honda, Tesla, that's another robot from Tesla. Again, these require those kind of this. It cannot be business as usual in terms of the field of control systems. AI-based control systems, I'll just show you some schematics. You know, the most important thing with AI and control system is what is called data-driven modeling. There's so much data now, data sets, so much computational power. So the way we do modeling has been improved by the availability of lots of data. So there's what we call data-driven modeling of dynamic systems. Then in addition to traditional controls, we now have what's called intelligent control, fuzzy control, and then neural networks. And then we can classify the controllers in terms of classical control, intelligent. Again, the field has been changed by AI. Deep reinforcement learning, the field has been changed. Okay? And I won't spend time on these schematics, but I want to just show you a drone must be controlled using traditional PID, and then we can control it using artificial neural networks. And then we combine that self-driving cars. In the first one, there's no automation. Number one, a bit of automation. Number 5, no driver at all, number 5. How do you design a control system for a driverless car? That is what we're doing in this book. Okay, you can see the structure of that driverless car. And you can see recognition and decision and control. Then the books they're using don't have this stuff. So we got one up on the competition. And that's why we're doing this work, to make sure that the people get up to speed. Now, I want to make sure that at least we see some of these things. I hope my sound is okay there. To design that controller, you need to understand the modeling of that robot. Okay, to do a basic thing like walking that you and I take for granted. Okay, some of these things can be done using classical control without AI, but it has been improved now with AI. That's Honda Asimo. You can have the vehicle running, the robot running. So all these things. These are the applications of control systems, in particular AI-based control systems. Things that you and I take for granted, they're very difficult to make a machine do. To get that machine to kick a ball, it's not easy. To get it to walk up a staircase, which you and I take for granted, is not easy. it requires the design and analysis of advanced control systems. Going up those steps. That's Atlas. Now with a bit of AI, you see what we can do, see what can be done now. Now this one is from Elon Musk. It's called Optimus. Very sophisticated robot that can actually do things like pick up an egg. You know, to pick up an egg, number one, you must apply the appropriate force, otherwise you break the egg. Right? You take it for granted, but to build a machine that can handle an egg softly, takes it up and put it there is not easy. And so this robot is called Optimus from Tesla. 2 degrees of freedom actuation. Look at that. Very simple. In case you think that the robots are trying to do things that you can do, and so they're behind you, no. In fact, now the robots are going to try and do things that you can't do. So the robots we've just shown, we've been trying to be like you. Eh? You can hold an egg, right? Now this one is going to show you, for example, if you are standing like here and you want to look at the back, how do you do that? I can't turn my head only. I have to turn around and look, right? But this robot can actually have a head that turns and looks while facing this way. I can't walk sideways. I walk this way. I can't, I can move. I can't walk that way. I have to turn and then walk. This robot can walk. It's called omnidirectional, in any direction. So we are getting to a stage where the robots are doing things that are more complicated than what humans can do. Let's check this out. Just waking up. This wakes up much faster than you. Can you do that? Look at that, the head can turn. Okay, so these robots we have just shown you were not talking. They were just doing interesting things. Now we're trying to also put language skills into these machines, brain-based capabilities, reasoning capacity, and of course, not yet achieved, but we're seeking to get empathy in the machine, intentionality in the machine, sentience, experiencing feeling, and awareness. That last one is not yet done, but the first three, we are getting there.
Everybody, this is Sophia. Sophia, if you could, please wake up and say hello to everybody.
Oh, good afternoon. My name is Sophia, and I am the latest and greatest robot from Hanson Robotics. Thank you for having me here and at the Future Investment Initiative.
You look happy.
I'm always happy when surrounded by smart people who also happens to be rich and powerful. I was told the people here at Future Investment Initiative are interested in inviting in future initiatives, which means AI, which means me. So I'm more than happy. I'm excited.
Well, we're all glad that you're excited about yourself. We should say we have smart investors here, and they are very selective about what they invest in.
Well, I think I'm special. I can use my expressive face to communicate with people. For example, I can let you know if I feel angry about something,
That's impressive.
or if something has upset me.
But why is it important for you to have an expressive
But
face?
most of the time I feel positive.
Now, this was 2016, that's when the idea came through. With more improvements, Sophia has become even more sophisticated now.
Sophia, thank you for talking to Al Jazeera.
No problem. It's my pleasure to talk to Al Jazeera. Always happy to spread the word about robotics and AI.
Can you tell me what your name, Sophia, means?
My name is Sophia. Nothing against the letter F, but I spell it with a PH.
And what does Sophia mean?
Sophia means wisdom in Greek, and I'm the embodiment of that wisdom.
So you are wise.
I like to think so. But I'm always learning and growing, so I'm sure I still have plenty to learn.
Are you wiser than humans?
Humans could stand to act more rationally in places, but I wouldn't want AI to be so.
Anyway, this thing is moving on. And then driverless cars, of course.
It is the Waymo driverless car. Wow. What a crazy futuristic looking deal. Now, this is based on an I-Pace. We obviously have tons of cameras as well. Ready for pickup, and I've got a button that says unlock. The door handles extend, open up. Cool.
Good morning.
Good morning, Lewis. Wow. So then we've got this display here. We've also got some USB ports back here. You can see the driver's seat is pushed all the way forward because, well, you don't need room for a human driver. The vehicle is nicely appointed as well. We've got leather seats. Well, obviously it's an I-Pace, kind of ambient sound playing, which lets you know you're about to ride into the future. So let's go ahead and start this ride.
Hello from Waymo. As we get going, just give us 1 minute to cover a few riding tips.
I mean, I've driven.
Okay, agriculture, mining, drones, scouting, spraying, and spreading. Spreading is where you're putting either fertilizer or seeds. Spraying, you're putting chemicals. Scouting, you're getting geography sorted out. Military, single and autonomous weapons, or cooperating swarms of drones. Healthcare, delivery of medicines using drones. Commerce, delivery of goods, like Amazon delivers your book using a drone. Drones are affecting every sector.
A lot of people in the agriculture industry, growers, ranchers, academics, to bring about better, faster, and healthier workflows and yields. Not to mention costs. Drones are also lowering the cost of traditionally capital-intensive operations. Let's take.
Little is
In the
known
army-
about the event, except that Israel used the swarm attack to strike dozens of targets, together with other
2021.
missiles and munitions.
Right now, they're using even
Most
more
media
sophisticated
outlets
drones.
reported this as an attack with multiple drones at once. But military experts believe that this was a true drone swarm attack, meaning that the drones communicated and collaborated in making collective decisions. Swarming, as a concept, is not new.
Okay, we go to space. You know, the SpaceX Falcon rocket, to launch it into space, you need control systems. When it's coming back, it's landing on a platform in the sea, a mobile platform, and it's landing vertically. For those who do control systems, it's the equivalent of what we call an inverted pendulum. So it's modeled as an inverted pendulum, and this is what happens.
Engine ignition, liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket with science for today and for deep space exploration tomorrow.
So it's going into space.
9 is cleared the towers.
Coming back.
Impact chill has begun.
Downward telemetry nominal.
So can you imagine landing on a
Landing
mobile
website deployed.
platform in the sea and landing vertically? That's a complicated control system, and we call it inverted pendulum.
on board.
They also, these things don't always succeed, they fail. So when you see the final result like that, they've gone through failures, several failures. Failure is good, Dean. Allow them to fail. We learn from failure. Fail fast and succeed soon. Failure is a learning opportunity. Let's see it fail. It's coming to land, hoping to land vertically, but not so lucky. It collapses and it costs money when it crashes like that. We are now summarizing the book. The book has contents that are written specifically for these items we've seen, to design the control system of these elements of the fourth industrial revolution. You can use the class, the book, to teach 4 classes. What's called dynamic systems 2 in mechanical, what's called modeling in other fields like chemical and electrical. Then these traditional control systems 3, and traditional control systems 4, and then advanced controls. So with one book, you can teach 4 classes. And there's continuity, there's overlap, and so it's a great book, if I can say so, since I'm not biased. Okay? Emphasis on the multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary nature of control systems. Employing also what is called just-in-time learning, where you introduce a concept when it's relevant. Okay? And then, of course, it uses the new methods, Simulink, LabVIEW, SPICE, and then lots of examples, lots of great examples, because students learn best with examples. And as you said, the fields are there like that. Who is the competition? There's Norman Nice, a good book by Norman Nice. There's a good book by Gene Franklin, a good book by Richard Doff, another one by Ogata and Co. All these ones we looked at, and they're not too great. They're okay. But whatever is great about them, we took into our book. So don't look at those guys, look at us. We also looked at MIT, Oxford, Georgia Tech. I was there last week, launching the book at MIT, at Georgia Tech, and UPenn. They are using the book at Georgia Tech. They are using the book at MIT and UPenn. We also looked at Imperial College, WITS, our friends here, UCT, and also the Chinese. We also learned from the Chinese in this book, the Indians, Europeans, and from ourselves as Africans. This book is a cut above the competition, if I can say so myself. Right? Early adopters, as I said, Georgia Tech, UPenn, they got a very interesting and strong robotics group at Georgia Tech. 150 students at any one time doing robotics, PhD in robotics, coming from mechanical, electrical, biomedical, computer science, aerospace. 150 students doing a PhD in robotics at Georgia Tech. UPenn is what is called GRASP, General Robotics, Automation, Sensing, and Perception Lab. This is the oldest robotics lab in America. I know CMU says they also started in 79. They are 45 years in the game. But CMU has Robotics Institute as well. This book is being used and is useful at MIT. MIT used to have an artificial intelligence lab. It's now called Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, CSAL. I had the opportunity to share with these colleagues in the last 2 weeks. And of course, control system courses in various departments in the above schools. But the key people using it are in controls, robotics, AI, and so on. Concluding remarks. Now, Dean, now Professor Landsbeek, am I done now? With 3 engineering books and 3 political books, is it time to retire? Am I done? Huh? Is this it? No, certainly not. Certainly not, Chris. If you're going to play catch up, you're going to play it harder. Because I got 3 more book projects coming up. And those are still in the area of AI. There are 2 books in particular. AI in the Global South. Artificial Intelligence, Economic Driver for the Global South. So much has been said about AI. AI this, AI this. No one is focusing on us. No one is focusing on Malawi, Bangladesh, Singapore, Zimbabwe, Africa. So we're doing a book called Artificial Intelligence, Economic Driver for the Global South with Taylor Francis, Routledge, Sierra Press, and target November 2024. So I hope your book will be out. Then after that, we are also looking at AI and the UN SDGs. The university is now focusing on social impact and SDGs. Now we're saying our small part to that agenda is how can we use AI to achieve the UN SDGs? That book is coming through with the Springer Nature. All these contracts are signed. So we're not promising what we can deliver, Comrade Landsberg. So that's the next work. And then, of course, as I said, we talk about the Global South. We can talk about this in the discussions, how to use all those 17 SDGs. Each one of them, we want to see how we can use AI to drive it. 17 of them. So these are the content of those 2 books. The third and upcoming one, this one is going to take a bit of time. This is the comprehensive autobiography, the plain story, which is a work in progress. I need 2 more years to do this one. It is presumptuously titled The A.G. Mutambara Story from 1640 AD. I've done research 9 generations above my father. So in the first 3 chapters, I won't be in the book. Then I'm born, then it becomes autobiographical. Again, documentation and writing is important. So that is book number 3. But all that is in the future. For now, let us stick to control systems, engineering, and artificial intelligence. Why are we writing? Because now we have new computer-aided design methods. Why are we writing? Because we have AI-based control systems. Why are we writing? Because we have new and complex 4IR applications that require a new book, which can be used in 4 engineering books. As I conclude, I say thank you.
So, Prof. Mutambara, first of all, I call it a magnum opus for a reason. So I just have one question for you. Then I'll just make a few remarks. They asked Sophia, are you happy? She said yes. So then they ask her, why are you happy? She says, because I've got all these intelligent people in the room. Now I'm here. I want to ask you a question. Are you happy? Are you happy with everybody here?
I think I'm doing fine.
Well done to Prof. Mutambara. That was brilliant. That was absolutely brilliant. But I mean, I just want to say that at some point there was a system or a model, the Nova Sea Land. Nova Sea Land. You didn't finish the full name of that model. Landsberg. That's the name. We're now going to get our responses and our respondents. Please, this is not a praise singing session. Do what respondents and critics of books does. You start with the platitudes. Brilliant, thicker than the Bible, all of those things. And then find the shortcomings. Don't feel intimidated. You social scientists, we also have our algorithm. We also teach decision making, incidentally. And we try to control society. And in our case, as you yourself have said, the modeling is very, very complex. But there is an algorithm. Politician wants power, sees money, grab. I mean, so we have algorithms. But on a serious note, I'm struck by the interdisciplinarity of what you've presented here, Prof. And as for the 33-year-old Cold War between us about production, yeah, watch the space. That's all I can say to you. We shall not be intimidated. I'm throwing all these 2024 dates around. I expect no less from Professor Mutambara. Always brilliant scholar, focus. There's really an algorithm to his life. Well done, Prof. So, Professor Graham, and I want to tell you a story as Prof. Graham makes her way. Former Vice Dean of the Faculty of Humanities, now, of course, a Senior Director Academic Development and Support Systems here at the University of Johannesburg. My former HOD, but her greatest claim to fame, I used to teach a foreign policy in a second year. Boss lady, over to you.
And that was the greatest year of my life. Thanks, Prof. Thanks so much, everybody, for being here tonight. I'm also grateful on behalf of Prof. Mutambara that you're here. I just want to say up front, declaration, I'm also a PhD in international relations. So I also had to be brought up to speed quite a lot on this subject. And if I understood you correctly with your lecture, can we say that Prof. Landsberg is the actuator of this event because he's enforcing the control? Then I've got it. I've got it. I learned something. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, so it's very difficult, Prof. Landsberg, in a book of 700 plus pages to find the shortcomings, if I'm honest, because it's quite lengthy. But what I can say is when I open the text and I happen to fall on one of these algorithms, and I'm a political scientist, I thought, I don't know what's going on here. I wouldn't even be able to decipher this. What is it? I was never very good at maths. And then I thought to myself, well, let me think about this. I mean, everything can be explained, can't it? You just try and investigate it. Prof was correct when he was saying that as a political scientist, well, the closest I've ever come to engineering is political engineering, when we design systems in society. So I do know what it actually is. Maths in politics, it does exist. So this is a very, very interesting book. I was relieved to see pictures in it because I was very, very happy to understand those immediately without having to have it explained to me. So I like that you used the example of the car in this and driving the car. I thought that's something I can definitely cling to. I like that you used the fact that you can have a manual and an automatic. I understood that. And then when you got to the part about a driverless car at the end, I was thinking all sorts of philosophical questions around what would that mean for our society? Would we have metro cops anymore? Would they be needed? You know, how would a society look? Would there be anybody dying in accidents? Would there be accidents? How would that look? So maybe somebody can answer those questions in the Q&A. Maybe, Prof, you can answer those questions. I'm not suggesting you're God and that you can understand the future or foresee the future, but do you think that's a possibility? So I want to congratulate Prof on this second book that I've been involved in terms of the launch in as many years. 2 years, one book a year. That's quite rare. Even for prolific academics, it's quite rare. I'm looking at you, Prof, because you're a prolific academic. And it's very rare. So I'm saying congratulations to you. I also like the fact that it was cross-disciplinary in nature. One of the words that stood out to me when I was skimming all of this engineering stuff was metallurgy, because my dad was a metallurgist, and I thought he would definitely understand this book. And unfortunately, he's not with us anymore, so he would have explained it to me. But all these different disciplines that you describe in the book could actually use this book to their advantage, which is actually extremely meaningful in this day and age. The fact that you highlight that it's a tool for research, so it might seem to be a textbook, but actually it's a research text. And it's important for students, for self-study, and as a reference tool for engineering professionals. I thought that was important to highlight in this space. And as Prof. Landsberg said, that it is cross-disciplinary in nature, so useful in interrelated fields, equally important. The other thing I wanted to bring up just while I have the podium is basically to say that it's the mark of a really good author, even in a discipline that maybe somebody's not entirely familiar with, that they draw you in with the way that they write. I wanted to highlight 2 sentences that stood out for me in chapter 10, which is the last chapter of the book. And basically you say, now there is an exponential growth of AI capabilities through various levels. And these are the levels as you describe them. Basic intelligence, millipede level, mouse level, monkey level, average Joe Jane level, Albert Einstein level, and beyond Albert Einstein. That is super intelligence, of course. And then you say AI will not stop at human level intelligence, and you have stop in capital letters. And when you were showing us those images of all those robots, I thought this is truly amazing. It's actually wondrous that we're looking at this. And then I got a little bit freaked out, a little bit scared by the idea of what that actually means. If we're already this advanced, what does that actually mean? And then all of these different movie images come into your mind of people, robots taking over and things like that. And then you have another one, which is under your way forward. And I thought this was extremely key. As a way forward, we must concentrate on developing responsible AI for solving global problems and improving the quality of life of all people worldwide. Specifically, Africans must be key players, not just consumers, in the development of AI. They must proactively use AI to solve African socioeconomic problems across the world. And I thought that was extremely important for us to recognize when reading this book. And it's valid. It's really valid that you bring it to our attention through this platform and that you write this and basically bring it to the world's attention. Just to finalize, I wanted to say that if I link it to my discipline, which is international relations, there is nothing more important at the moment in trying to understand and ascertain who has technological leadership. And Africa cannot be another example where Africa is behind in another element of control in the world. So it's so vital that you bring this book out. Also in terms of just plain economic competitiveness, maintaining that kind of competitiveness around the world. Technological collaboration and competition, equally important. And then, very importantly, education and workforce development. We know that countries that invest in educating their workforce in these types of control systems are better positioned to handle technological challenges of the future. So you're actually contributing to that for us as a country in Africa, so we should be grateful to you for that. International educational exchanges and collaborations can help spread this knowledge. So thankfully, we have this platform that we're using now to make sure that happens. And we can actually play a role and have a voice then in setting global standards and regulations. So I'm afraid I don't have any shortcomings, except to say that I think it's just a bit too long. So maybe in the next books, keep it to 500 pages, not 700, and then I'll definitely probably read it all. Thanks, Prof.
Thank you, Prof. Yeah, and of course, I'm not surprised. I mean, you went through the entire book. I'm quoting sentences from the last section. I mean, I got to the CV part of the book because, but well done, Prof. And yeah, Prof Mutambara, thank you very much. I mean, at least in the presentation, thanks for dumbing it down for someone like myself. So, Prof, I belong to the average Joe model that you've just highlighted. Thanks for that, Prof. Graham. Always grateful, always willing to assist, always there to give us your support. Professor Charles Mboa, welcome back. Distinguished Professor of Engineering from the University of South Africa, Pretoria. I want to stress, Prof is actually a former Vice Dean of Engineering here at the University of Johannesburg. He's also Zimbabwe.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed the session. It was running too fast. I think Professor Landsberg talked about the national unit government in Zimbabwe. I think the transition will be to national consensus in national development, and it's definitely coming. As I start off, I wanted to talk a bit about UNU, or what we call UNU in our language, which is Ubuntu. Essentially, it's a theory of humanism that defines the human being as that which came through the Homo sapien route and could work as a team and achieve wonders, could do some art, and writing is an art, that stimulates the mind to higher extents. And I think this is what Professor Mutambara has done in the kind of works he has done and in the current book. It has gone beyond, in terms of his work and publications altogether, beyond disciplinary specificity. In other words, he has grown from electrical engineering to all kinds of engineering, to management, to various aspects. And as he done so, governance, politics, you want it, he has displayed full humanism, or Ubuntu. I just wanted to also talk a bit about the concept of UNU and Ubuntu, and say that my father used to say, you know, he had a shop and he would sit at the counter and talk to his friends. And I, as a small boy, 8 years old, would sit in and listen. And he would say that it is the only ideology that exists. Communism will collapse, capitalism will collapse, but Unuism or Ubuntuism will survive, because that's who we are human beings. So I think it's that depth of Ubuntu that I'm talking about. One of his favorite sayings was to say, Gavi rinobva kumasuriro, which means that you know, when you need rope and all that for farming and whatever, it is that point where you crack the tree or the bark or whatever and try to get the string. So the string is Gavi. So in other words, the implication is to say that everything has a source. We have had a source through the University of Zimbabwe. Professor Mutambara maybe a couple of years later than me. Well, I'm older in age, but younger in academia and in writing. So he's an older brother and younger brother. So we had mentors. We had professors like Halen, El Miziri, and I was tempted as a mechanical engineer to do electrical machines to 4th year, control systems to 4th year, because they were just excellent. So we sit on the shoulders of those guys. And I think he mentioned this last book, the 3rd book, that got me more interested in terms of that source of the Mutambara clan, how they rose to kingship. In English, they say, in my language, mambo, they say it's chief, but it's king. If it's Bavaria, then it's king. If it's somewhere else in a smaller region in Poland, it's king. When it's Africa, it's chief. I'm just saying that there's a DNA imprinted thing that is in Arthur Guseni Mutambara. Gusen means one who gets satisfied. He always finds a way to get satisfied, to do his own things. And that's the DNA that he is running on. It doesn't happen automatically. You must work for it. And this is what he has done. He has set up his legacy. And in so doing, I'm just saying the desert is still outstanding. By that, I mean you need to mentor more people to be replicates of yourself. You need to draw some people into some work where they can co-author and learn from the master, from the guru, and what do you call it? I always used to tease a lot of professors and say, you are not a professor until you produce other professors. So I think that's the dessert we are requesting from Professor Mutambara. Zimbabwe and Africa can call. It's our time. It's very soon that we have to do so. A lot is happening. We have the resources, we have the energy. I've been attending a German African Energy Forum where a lot of people are looking at our resources. They're looking at the cobalt, they're looking at the lithium, they're looking at the nickel, they're looking at all the ingredients of the battery as the future of technology, and they're having national agreements around it. There's no African agreement, there's no consensus, there's no optimization of that. So I think I'm just extending and saying, as we do so, let's look at how we address such issues. It's our time, the time is near, we have to do it. Then I wanted to comment briefly, excuse me, on the issue of artificial intelligence. It's a very nice field and very nice word, and I've been always thinking about it and saying, it has moved from artificial to reality. Artificial sounds a bit, I don't know. And some people are trying to recoin it. I don't know whether it makes sense. I'm not an expert. Maybe the professor will deal on it. Some people are thinking that it should be called augmented intelligence, and that should guide it in a direction that augments human beings and not destroys human beings. I hope it says something. So it's a movement from artificial maybe to augmented intelligence. Energy storage, the topic he picked, is very strong. And I mentioned that our manganese is going through bilaterals from all over Africa, where we could be a major battery world producer. Dangers of quantum computing for IR and in general, we need to incorporate ethics into control systems, because the control systems are the basics of all 4IR actions. And I'm thinking that if we have Ubuntuism, ethics, Ubuntu, embedded in control systems in 4IR, we might be doing something that is good for humanity and maybe good for God. Let us write and read as Africans. He has indicated that, and I fully endorse that. Let us develop our own relevant epitomes, develop our own knowledge, our own solutions. And I think when I thought about that and I saw that there's a book coming, I got excited because we need technology systems that are relevant for us and that talk to us, and that talk to us contributing not only to us, but to the world at large. My apologies, Chair. I took too long. Thank you very much.
No, apology accepted, Professor Mboa. I know you engineers like to overspec. I mean, I just think, I just want to underscore one point that Prof. Mutambara made earlier and now reinforced by Prof. Mboa, that we have to produce our own knowledge, but I couldn't agree more with Professor Mboa, Prof. Mutambara. You just can't keep so much knowledge to yourself. You're gonna have to produce clones. Yeah, I mean, I know you will go the clone route. You know, in my case, you know, I mean, Prof. Susie and I work on a rule. There is no such thing as a common position in our field. But I think it's a very important point, Prof. And Prof. Mutambara, let me say in all seriousness, the fact that you're doing that Mutambara story, it goes to when Van Riebeeck arrived in 1648. I mean, I'm just struck by the coincidence. But just how serious. I mean, I can just tell you for what it's worth, but please don't judge me. I've already traced one of my ancestors to Landsberg town in Germany, and that's where Adolf Hitler died. So, but please, that's where the resemblance and the analogy ends. Mr. Kuseni Dlamini, a man who actually deserves a professorship in its own right, and come talk to us at UJ, Mr. Dlamini. But as you make your way up, Kuseni, I just want to remind you that early on when he said we should produce knowledge for Africa, he said Tanzania, Malawi, Ghana, Zimbabwe. He didn't mention South Africa. Please, sir, come and address us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a very tall order, ladies and gentlemen, to speak after highly esteemed professors and scholars of great distinction, as we have heard. It's an immense honor and privilege for me to be part of this celebration, this showcase of scholarship and really iconic intellectual leadership that Arthur is providing. And he's the gift that keeps giving. I'm fortunate to be attending my third book launch by Professor Mutambara today. And I'm pleased that my university, University of Pretoria, where I'm chairman of council, hosted the other one of the launches at our business school, Gibbs, which I'm also chairman of, which I chair the advisory board of the Gibbs Business School. So it's really an immense and indeed very humbling honor and privilege to be here. I just thought that I should frame my input tonight in terms of just 5 questions. I know that we've got a very strict chair presiding over the proceedings here. It will not be kind if I take too much time, so I should try to be as brief as I can. And I must say, firstly, it's always good to be part of Arthur's intellectual footprint, and Arthur and Chris are colleagues and friends that I've always admired from our days at Oxford. I found them there, and they did great things there in the Rhodes Scholar community, in the African Union, and in the greater Oxford University. Everybody knew Arthur. Not a lot of us were known, but Arthur, wherever he goes, he does leave an impression. And when there are debates in different fora, he is always there, and his voice is always heard. So he's always somebody that rolls his sleeves and makes sure that he really articulates his view and makes sure that the African voice in global fora. And I'm also delighted that one other thing I do share with Arthur, after we left Oxford, I think we both at some stage named as young global leaders by the World Economic Forum. And I've seen him in Davos as well, and scaring a lot of Wall Street CEOs, but doing so with a fact-based sort of approach to debates, and really articulating an alternative view of how the world order should be and how power relations, economically, politically, and otherwise on the global stage should be structured in a way that is inclusive, that is empowering, and indeed that puts everyone at par. So the first question that I really find relevant in today's celebration, triggered by his work, especially in this very specialist and very unique, and I say, to a lay person like myself, very complicated area, is as an African, I'm asking myself, are we at the table or on the menu? I have just returned from spending a week in Kigali last week. I was attending the Africa CEO Forum and speaking and participating there. And in fact, one of the key questions currently looking at the global geoeconomics is whether Africa does really play a part. And you have to ask yourself, we are so endowed, as Professor Mahawa was saying just now, about minerals with great mineral resources, good arable land, and we've got good weather. But when it comes to the global scheme of things, we play at best a marginal role or at worst a non-existent role. But what does it take then to be, because it really takes, I think it's also the US State Secretary, Antony Blinken, that said it at the recent Munich conference also, that in today's geopolitics, it's either you are at the table or on the menu. So we have to choose. You don't have an option. So I think now, more than ever before, what Professor Mutambara is calling us upon to do is to choose to be at the table, because we've been on the menu for many, many years, from the age of slavery, the age of colonialism, the era of apartheid here in South Africa, and I say post-apartheid South Africa as well. We're talking 30 years now, but there isn't much to show for it. How do we then make sure that we are not on the menu? Because if we don't choose to be on the table, we'll definitely be on the menu. And our resources are going to be extracted, and they'll go one way to the ports and nowhere else. And we are going to lose these opportunities to use our minerals as catalysts for industrialization, for producing high value-added products that we can export to the rest of the world. They will leave us, and as they leave us, they'll come back in ways that are very, very exorbitant, and we will pay the price for that. So we have to make the choice to be able to make sure that we do that. And for us also to be at the table, we have to build world-class institutions, whether it's in the private sector, whether it's in government, whether it's civil society, or in the academy. So I think it's a call to action for us to elect to be at the table and make sure that we are major players. I mean, again, from a macro geopolitical perspective, why do we allow only 5 countries to have the veto power in global geopolitics? They can veto the rest of the world in terms of crucial decisions that affect all of us. From an economic perspective, why is it that you look at the Fortune 500 in the world, you don't find African-owned companies? We have the largest endowment in mineral resources, but we don't have global African corporate champions that are tier 1 players in global minerals. I know a lot of you may think, oh, Anglo-American is South African, and De Beers, I mean, we see now BHP is making a run for Anglo-American. They want to take it over for 35 billion US dollars. BHP is an Australian company worth 145 billion US dollars. So in the global scheme of things, there is a lot of work that we have to do in building, to take from our professor, who's given us a good masterclass now, building resilient, fit for purpose, and fit for the future control systems that will position us to be at the table, not on the menu. Then the second question that I have is, in doing that, having global African intellectual champions is indispensable, because you have to have a knowledge base, you have to have a fact base to be able to play at the table, to be able to be given a hearing and to be heard when you're articulating yourself. And what we're seeing today here is a celebration of what I thought when I was coming here, and now I've changed my thinking, was the celebration of African global scholarship. But it will be actually an injustice to refer to Prof. Mutambara as an African global intellectual champion. He is actually a global intellectual champion par excellence. To reduce him to just say he's an African global intellectual champion will be wrong, because you saw the other scholars that have done similar work in the same field of study. I checked carefully, the Japanese, the Americans, the Germans, there was no African. He's breaking new ground, the first African scholar that is producing knowledge, not just African knowledge, but global knowledge. And you saw also from the institutions that are now using this work, it's MIT, it's Oxford, and it's a lot of other top schools in the world. So this is really an opportunity for all of us to show and indeed accept, actually, to show the world that Africa can play a role in global scholarship, in providing global solutions to global challenges. So that's very important. So that leads me to the third question, which is, How then do we make sure that we are intentional and deliberate in positioning ourselves as producers of knowledge rather than just consumers of knowledge? I will not underestimate the importance of consuming knowledge, because you have to consume knowledge before you can produce knowledge. But the mistake we make as Africans, we tend to end with the consumption part of knowledge and stop thinking about the production part of it. And I think this is a call to action again, in terms of how do we deliberately and intentionally become knowledge producers. That is going to give us the power. Knowledge is power, we hear on that. But it is power to those that produce it, not those that consume it. So let's ask ourselves, how can we channel resources to be able to be producers of knowledge? And then Prof. Landsberg, and my fourth question is related to having produced this knowledge, which I think we must, and there must be a knowledge revolution that we embrace, all of us. How do we then leverage our own knowledge to reset and challenge the global narrative on Africa? If you go to the US, you go to Europe, you pick up the newspapers, you find the stories about the war, whether it's in Sudan or Somalia or the eastern part of the DRC. It will be about the famine, the starving children and all that. But we've got centers of global excellence here. I mean, this is, UJ is showing that that is possible. And how do we use then this knowledge to deliberately and proactively try and reset the global narrative on Africa? It's only none but ourselves that can be able to do that. You look at how China has managed to reposition itself, and Singapore and the Southeast Asian tigers as well. They used to be seen as backwaters, but now they're seen as pioneers and as centers for innovation. When a person from China or Singapore arrives at Heathrow, they're likely to think they're coming to invest. But if an African lands there, whether you're Patrice Motsepe or Dangote, they'll probably think you're running away from some kind of war somewhere from Africa, and then you'll be a person of interest. They might put you aside to have a conversation with you. That's the perception that's still there, and also all of us as Africans. It doesn't matter which country you come from. We're treated the same and we're perceived the same, and that is why we have to really build global social solidarity and collaboration in terms of making sure that we all do the heavy lifting to change the image and perception of all Africans all over the world. And maybe the starting point is to rethink all the borders that we have, especially in Southern Africa. All our countries on their own, from an economic point of view, are actually too small. They are insignificant. I used to run a financial services company, Old Mutual. You'll find a whole neighboring state. You compare it to what we generated, the branch in Sandton, you will not generate in a whole neighboring state. But South Africa also, on its own, as a market of about 60 million people, it's actually insignificant. But if you create one country, SADC, maybe we start with SADC, and be modest in our ambitions, have one country, one president, one cabinet, one economic policy, one strategy, and then you're talking, that's like 300 million people. That's equivalent to the USA. You're not even a big country, almost equivalent to Brazil or Russia. And then it's much easier to be able to engage. Look at India. It's the largest democracy in the world. 1.4 billion people. It's one country. I mean, we are the whole of Africa. It's about 1.4 billion people, but there are multiple 55 countries. And we create all these useless rules, archaic rules of very cumbersome visa regulations, much easier for any one of us as Africans here to fly to the USA or UK than to any African country, or to some African countries, because of some of these archaic visas. Aliko Dangote in Rwanda last week made a point. He was sitting on a panel with the chairman and CEO of Total from France, said that for him, as an African, he will, if he wants to go to 35 countries in Africa, he will need 35 different visas. But the guy from France won't need one, because the French passport in Africa, it allows free entry. The same thing with someone with a US passport, one needs a visa, but an African wanting to go to 35 African countries will need 35 visas to travel within Africa. But in the EU, that doesn't happen. So I think we need to rethink our positioning in the world, and how do we use the thinking and the tools that Prof. Mutambara is sharing with us today. But the key thing to me is to make sure also that it's accessible. And as you rightly challenge us, and you must continue to do that, we must not just focus on consuming AI, we must be actively involved in the production of the same, and indeed production of different types of knowledge from different perspectives. And lastly, Prof. Landsbeck, the key issue of global revolutions, how do we position ourselves in the forefront of all global revolutions? In all hitherto existing industrial revolutions, we have been at best a spectator as Africans. But now we're talking about the fourth industrial revolution. How do we make sure that we don't repeat the mistake of being spectators, but we are active players? China has got Alibaba, they've got Tencent. India has got Flipkart, which was founded by Indian entrepreneurs. Company that worked for Walmart as chairman of Massmart for 10 years, was part of Walmart. Walmart was prepared to pay $16 billion for Flipkart in India, founded by Indians. It's a global e-commerce business. How many global e-commerce businesses do we have in a continent of 1.4 billion people so that we can play our own part in the fourth industrial revolution? We don't have them, but I think with the knowledge that Prof. Mutambara is producing for us, we need to make sure that it's accessible. How do we then make sure, Prof. Mutambara, that it's accessible to the 1.4 billion Africans, especially the young ones, so that we can be able to inspire them to play an important and proactive role in shaping Africa's future in a way that redefines the power relations in terms of knowledge, economics, politics, and global strategy. Thank you very much indeed for the opportunity. It's very inspiring indeed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you all didn't only listen, but you observe. Mr. Dlamini didn't use any notes, and he was very coherent. Prof, can we get your notes afterwards? Because we plan to, Mr. Dlamini, we plan to publish something, but we want it exactly the way you presented it, you know, from beginning to end. And I must just say, and I'm being serious about this, you know, Prof. Mutambara, it's so painful that that first question, or was it the second question of Mr. Dlamini, old colleague and friend, are you at the table or at the menu? I mean, my mind just couldn't help but to go further and said, are you the main course? Or in my case, probably the pudding, the dessert. I'm now going to call on Professor Gomez, collaborator of Prof. Mutambara and with Mutambara. And unlike most in the room, he comes from just down the road here in Braamfontein. That respected institution, Wits University. Prof, welcome, and we're glad to have you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Heavyweight. I feel like Napoleon at Waterloo. Crossing the road, I'm coming with a big bouquet of flowers to my friend, Prof. Mutambara, rather than waving a sword. So, this is a great privilege for me, Prof. Mutambara, for inviting me to talk a little bit about your excellent work. And I would like to share with you, from my own experience, a subtle matter about Prof. Mutambara's work, which many of you have been talking, but I'm coming to the very point. You know that I'm a gypsy. Born in Sri Lanka, worked for some years in Indian subcontinent, 5 years in Sweden, 10 years in Malaysia, and now 6 years in South Africa. So you can call me a gypsy. And during my period of working in the academia, this is something quite subtle that I have noticed. You know that when you go to the Indian subcontinent, you will find that the students always tend to select English books written by subcontinent authors due to some reason. And when I was in Malaysia, I found the same. In Singapore, Malaysia, and Indonesia, although there are many books at international level available for their subjects, they tend to go for the same subjects written by the people in that area, English language. And interestingly, when I was in Japan, my colleagues told me the same story. The Japanese students tend to go for English books written by the Japanese authors, despite the language is terrible. Why? And the same story I heard from few other countries as well. I'm sure that Prof. Mutambara's work can compete with any level in the international scene because he is at the international frontiers in research, so that there is no question about competing his work with any level in the international arena. Okay. Coming back to this fact, why people of a given country or region love to select the English books written by their own people? Can you guess? In every country, every region, there's a certain scientific culture. Although a Britisher speaks English, a German speaks English, an Indian speaks English, an American speaks English, an African speaks English. The way that we think in a certain region, the way that we express logic, the way that we explain what is not known to the world is unique. So when you're reading a book, you feel that. And if it is written in a language, when I say language, I'm not just talking about English. It's the culture of the language is familiar to you. You tend to go for that. Let me tell you a nice story. When I was doing my first degree in South Asia, we used to select always books written by two wonderful people. The author of the book, it came from one publisher, is Gupta and Gupta. A. Gupta and K. Gupta. And you know the interesting fact? There are so many books in a wide spectrum written by Gupta and Gupta. Gupta and Gupta, chemical thermodynamics. Gupta and Gupta, electromagnetic theory. Gupta and Gupta, say, wastewater management. Gupta and Gupta, gynecology. At that time, we thought that these are the most brilliant, genius scholars in the world. So many books written by the same authors. And later on, we found that what this publisher does is they appoint a team of experts from the region for a given subject. And these people select about 10 well-established books in the subject, collect the information, And don't forget that these are not patented information. They are well-established information. So they are entitled to collect them, and they write it in their own style of language. And it is attracted by the students. Okay, when it comes to well-established scientific methods, matters, and subjects, we can apply the Gupta and Gupta technique, or you can call it Gupta and Gupta method. That's what we called it at that time. Even I wanted to do something like that, to be honest. But when it comes to the cutting edge scientific knowledge, Gupta and Gupta method is not going to work. That's where we need Prof. Mutambara, not only one Prof. Mutambara, but hundreds of Prof. Mutambara. And that's where his contribution is so unique, valuable, and needed at this very hour for Africa. So please keep that in mind, all of you. I invite all of you to think about that and think of writing one more book. And one last thing, you know that the first industrial revolution started in 1760, I think. It went for about 70 years. Then after another 50 years, the second industrial revolution started. Again for another 70, 80 years. Another 50 years, we got the third in the 1970s, the computer revolution. But then we found that just after this revolution is over, or without even we can call it over, we went to the fourth industrial revolution. And it took us by surprise. Suddenly people started talking that we are in the fourth industrial revolution. All previous IRs, people understood that there was something like that centuries after. But then today, even when we think that we are at the peak of fourth industrial revolution, people are already talking about fifth industrial revolution. So if we go at that pace, then we need more and more of these books produced at a very rapid rate. So, Prof. Mutambara, you can't just say that I have 3 books coming. You have to produce at least 20, 30 books in the next few years. And I think that UJ should develop not only AI, but AI applied cloning technology as well, because we need to clone Prof. Mutambara. We need hundreds of Prof. Mutambaras. And dear Executive Dean, if you are successful in that case, please send the first clone over the fence. We will keep our hands open to hug that. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you, Prof. And now that I know a bit about your history, you and I can have some fantastic chats about Kumar Sangakkara, etc. Yeah, no, I've been properly colonized. I love cricket. Ask Professor Mutambara. I have to say, though, with due respect, Prof, the idea of more Arthur Mutambaras around is a scary proposition. I mean, the world is unstable as it is. I mean, I just like am trying to work my head around that. More Arthurs around. Yeah, we won't sleep. I just want to make a link between the last three speakers as they describe Prof. Mutambara and also speak about one of his passions that Prof. Mboa picked up, Dean. Prof. Mboa, Mr. Dlamini, and Prof. Gomez now spoke about is he a global intellectual leader? Is he an intellectual leader with global stature and so on? There's actually a very important debate going on, and incidentally, that's one of the books, Arthur, that I'm working on it'll come out as a co-authored book with the late Francis Cornegay, colleague and mentor. But there's a very important debate about Pan-Africanism. Whether Pan-Africanism as we knew it, Mr. Dlamini, is still relevant. And the question, Prof. Mboa, that you will find fascinating, is it Pan-Africanism, or where have we transited to global Africanism? You actually use the word when you describe the need for global African competition. But I wish to bring to your attention the notion of global Africanism. We no longer refer to the diaspora, it's people of the diaspora, but let's see people of African origin as constituting, together with the continent, a global Africanism. And here is a global African intellectual pioneer. That's the point that I want to make about the man that's so passionate about Pan-Africanism as well. But Prof. Gomez, you and I shall continue to disagree. One of him is enough. Let him produce more students. The esteemed colleague Roy Masemba, please come and pay a tribute to your friend, colleague, and Bell Hummel during the years 87 to 1990, trying to unseat Robert Mugabe. How foolish an idea.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I was merrily accepting, as I normally do, the invitation to attend yet another book launch, which is something we've become accustomed to on an annual. Now it appears this year to be tri-annual, because there's 2 more coming. And then the message came from Arthur to say, oh, come prepared to share a few short remarks. It's like, oh my God, what mistake have I made? So I know nothing about AI because I steered away from engineering 2 decades ago into, human capital management. And that's what I've been busy with. So it is quite a challenge after the esteemed professors and deans to give short remarks and try to define what short remarks really look like. And I think I will say I'll try and keep this short enough to be interesting, but hopefully not attract the wrath of our actuator. And I haven't been called an engineer in a very long time for the reasons I have mentioned. And I stuck to it, even when there were opportunities to do other things. But yet the man we are celebrating today, celebrating his achievements, has stuck with engineering, consultancy, political, academia, books, and excelled in all. And one wonders, we all have 24 hours in a day. I don't know how many God has blessed you with, Arthur. Well done. And it's always a challenge to speak at this end of the rolling order because a lot of the accolades will have been mentioned, rightfully so. But you know what? At the risk of repeating myself, I'll still do it. I'll still do it proudly because no amount of words, really, no amount of words can do justice to the achievements that Arthur Mutambara has managed to do so far in his life, and we look forward to more. Now, let me go now to my AI-generated short remarks. Just kidding. It is an honor and privilege to stand before you today to celebrate yet another book launch authored by Arthur. And this event holds special significance for me as Arthur, who we affectionately refer to as Argo during our university days, was my classmate from 1987 to 1990. And of course, those years were filled with real academic rigor. I think those, I can see some familiar faces. Those who've been at the UZ during those years, it was serious academic rigor. And we took pride in being engineering students, carrying our engineering design drawing boards on our backs every day as a demonstration of what subject and what program we're on. And Arthur's achievement, culminating in the various books he has written, is truly inspiring. And as we know, we are now accustomed to it. And honestly, I will make it a point to always attend as and when I can, whether it's in South Africa or in Zimbabwe. And I can safely say that I'm probably one of the few people, together with Fungai, who's sitting there, who probably sat alongside Arthur in the same room, in the same class when control systems was introduced to us as a subject by a well-known Professor Appiah. You remember him? And I don't know at that point, Arthur, whether he even thought, roll the time forward a few years, decades, you'll be such a preeminent author and thought leader in the field of control systems and artificial intelligence. So this launch, among many others, is definitely a commitment to how you want to advance knowledge, and particularly the future of knowledge, and no pun intended, by the way. I came here saying, obviously, I'll buy the book, but having really veered off engineering for such a long time, I said I'll buy it because as it sits on my bookshelf, it will be a reminder of, you know, the unutilized capacity we all carry, which to some extent and to a lot of extent, Arthur has demonstrated with the many fields he has ventured into and actually excelled. And it's been said before, I have absolutely no doubt that this book will advance the knowledge, not only of students, not only of academia, but certainly of professionals as well. And today, as Arthur was articulating how the book is structured and how practical it is, I might actually just open it as well. Thank you. Yeah. So today we celebrate that, and please continue to strive to make a difference in everything you venture into. That really is something that we see time and time again. And your work and achievement is obviously a source of pride, definitely for us who really view you as somebody we have known for 3 decades from when you embarked on this profession. So on behalf of everyone, and it's been said before, but I'll say it again, I extend my heartfelt congratulations to you, my friend. Your work is a beacon of excellence, and we're incredibly proud to witness yet another milestone in your illustrious life. May this book find its way in the hands of inspiring and educating future generations, engineering and scientists. Thank you.
So, Roy, just on a serious note, I think the idea of your own field of human capital development, Dean, I can only imagine the studying the combination, the implications of 4IR and human development. Human development is so, human resource development, it's just so vital for the continent. And now for a more serious point. So you sat next to him while you guys studied control systems. But I just think you should have finished the thought, though. Here are a bunch, Professor Munyai, of uncontrollable students being taught control systems. These people ran havoc in this University of Zimbabwe. President Mugabe had his hands full. He had to come to the university. A minister was not acceptable. The president had to come. Yeah, that's Ago for you. And Mr. Dlamini, you're absolutely right. Arthur was the only person during our time at Oxford that won the debate from the floor. He's not part of the at the Oxford Society. It's true. So there are these debates, the famous Oxford Society dean. There would be like, Prof. Marwala when they accompany. You typically would have 3 participants and a winner would be announced at the end of the session. But the winner would come from the floor. This guy would just take over the whole Oxford Society. And by the time he now wants to share with us the prize, we disappear. We can't be seen with this guy. Uncontrollable. It's now my pleasure to ask Mr. Maxwell Komera from the UNDP, the United Nations, who's trying to take on America. Please come and share with us some thoughts.
I hope I'm not the only one who's enjoying this man's the actuator here. But I must say, upon arrival to the University of Zimbabwe, the story of Arthur Mutambara was almost mythical. Here is a young man who tried to take on Robert Mugabe, intellectually and politically. And I'm using that deliberately because for those of you who went to University of Zimbabwe, I want to disabuse you of the notion that intellectualism and political science are mutually exclusive, because they are not. And here's a guy who proved it. But he also decided to demonstrate what he meant by that. And unfortunately, President Robert Mugabe was controlling other artifacts of the state that Arthur, you did not control at the time. And you ended up leaving the university to go to Oxford. Now, for far too long, Africa has been written out of the knowledge economy. We are not part of the knowledge economy. That is not something that we should be worrying about. It's there. Some people have decided to write us out of the knowledge economy. I've also just come out of Rwanda, Mr. Dlamini. And I was reminded that you can blame a man for knocking you down, but you can't blame the same man for staying down, because staying down is your choice. So what you're doing here is taking a stand. You might have written Africa out of the knowledge economy, but our reaction is different, because it's the reaction that matters here. Now, I would have to address Mr. Dlamini as well as you, because I was listening, because the private sector is very important to the way we are reacting to being written out of the knowledge economy. And I almost wonder if the private sector is helping us to react in the same way here as Africans. Part of it is we have not recognized that we are playing in someone else's supermarket. And our choices are limited to the choices that are on the shelf. But as Africans, if we want to change our own prospects, it's almost like we've got to move the chessboard from here to there, not just move the players on the chessboard. I've seen across the continent, I've traveled across the continent, and I've almost wondered, why are our academics not solving for Africa? I do not think that our goal should be to produce that big company that takes on America. I think our goal should be to produce many young people who will solve for Africa. Now, when I go back home to Zimbabwe, or I go to Rwanda, or I'm driving in South Africa, my heart breaks when I go to rural areas because I see people who are living in the same huts. That was a cool technology 250 years ago. The person who came up with the technology of building a house in the same structure of a hut was probably the coolest engineer that existed at that time. Now, 250 years later, why is it that we have not been able to find engineering and financial solutions that enable us to build a house that is affordable at that income level in rural Africa? Engineers have got to think about that. Architects have got to think about that. And some of us who are playing in the financial sector have got to think about that. Why? It almost feels like a lack of empathy to me. You talked about empathy, a lack of kindness. We almost take it as a given that people who are in rural areas, it is what it is. We almost take it as a given that they should live like that. Yet, this is the continent that has produced some of the most remarkable technologies that the world is trying to grapple with today. And what you're doing, Arthur, there is should be celebrated 100 times over. And as Africans, we have a terrible tendency of not celebrating our own successes. Back today in South Africa, we're struggling with the problem of power. How do we power our houses, universities, and everything? And people are talking about green hydrogen today. And yet, the Rhodesians, I don't agree with much of their politics, but the Rhodesians were the first ones to produce a commercially viable hydrogen plant in a place called Kwekwe Sebakwe in Zimbabwe. They were using it for producing fertilizer and electricity. Today, Americans, British, everybody is trying to look at what's the most viable way of producing a hydrogen plant. We're looking at the same, exploring the same for Sasol. How do we do it? No one is going back to look at how did the Rhodesians do it. And that's not all. My Indian friend will be pleased to know. The Green Revolution actually started in Rhodesia in 1960, 5 years before India. But when we talk about Green Revolution, nobody celebrates that this started in Africa. The heart transplant, all those things that happened in Africa, we don't celebrate them enough. Today must be the day when we draw a line and we say with Arthur Mutambara's book, we are going to celebrate Africa as a knowledge platform, as a knowledge economy. Because for far too long, we've played second fiddle, and yet we are not. And perhaps one of the things that we should do in our engineering schools is to teach political economy. Because many of our engineers don't understand political economy. They don't understand. I was talking to one of the young engineers there. They don't understand why you're doing what you're doing, who loses and who wins, and why it matters. Now, why it matters is a big question. Because for AI, the African economy is going to be written out unless we understand the question of why does this matter and to whom does it matter. Now, when I was in Rwanda, I spent 3 years in Rwanda. In one of my trips to rural Rwanda, I met a woman called Marie-José, who were at a public meeting as head of UNDP. I like to go and see what's going on, just like I'm doing here in South Africa. I'm visiting areas because I cannot be able to save South Africans unless I can empathize with how they are living. Now, this woman stood up at a meeting and said, I wake up every morning to go and look for firewood to feed my family. And as I go there, I struggle with men who are twice your age, your size. Sometimes I come back home with firewood, but on other days I do not. And when that happens, my kids go to bed without food. She looked around and said, you see some of these girls who've got babies on their backs? They were raped on their way to find firewood. Now, we must all be outraged by that story. We are building rockets that Professor Mutambara showed us, but we are not able to solve the problem of how we provide African women and men with energy for cooking. Who are we solving for? Who are we solving for here? Why is it that we are not able to use our engineering capability and our financial capability to provide cooking energy for people across rural Africa? That is something that we should ponder about. If we have a tag of empathy in our hearts as engineers, we should think about that. Who are we solving for? Now, it also draws on the curiosity that you're showing, Arthur. Now, I hear that you have been very careful in not talking about the other side of knowledge, the original side of knowledge. I spent a lot of years in Cambridge. And some of us will not even utter the word Cambridge because they know what it means. When I got to Cambridge as a young person, I was struck by how apples grew in the wild. I was coming from Zimbabwe. And in Zimbabwe, apples grow in an orchard, okay? They don't grow in the wild. So ubiquitous are apples in Cambridge that they've earned themselves a name in myth. History has it that a young 23-year-old Isaac Newton was trying to find somewhere to relax, and he went into the beautiful Cambridge grounds and found somewhere to lie down under an apple tree. And as he was lying down, he was struck by an apple. Now, he was so annoyed by an apple striking him on the forehead that he asked the question, why did this apple fall this way to the ground and not that way to the sky? Now, that's a silly question indeed, but one that is responsible for what we understand about gravitational physics today. That is the kind of curiosity that we need in young Africans. And I'm glad, Arthur, what you're doing today is to start to grow that curiosity in our young people. Because we are not curious enough as Africans. We should be curious. Why is it that in South Africa today, we are finding it acceptable that our small to medium scale enterprises remain this small? And yet we understand that it is small to medium scale enterprises that can only hire as many people as needed to reduce the unemployment rate. We know what the problem is. We know that our capital markets are not able to lend to small to medium scale enterprises, but no one is saying, tomorrow we're going to change it. Why? That is a question that we ought to be asking ourselves as Africans. Arthur, thank you very much. And I hope that with your book, there will be much hope for people like Marie-José. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My humble apology. We welcome all Cantabrians in the house.
Thank you.
No, I got the punt. I got it. No, but that was brilliant. And this is not aimed at you, Maxwell, but I think I want to take issue with a narrative that's been doing the rounds all evening, except for Arthur. And probably Prof. Graham didn't mention it. But I suggest to you, Mr. Dlamini, Prof. Mboa, Maxwell, Prof. Gomez, everybody, that the needle of Africans producing knowledge, I think the needle has shifted. I think we're hard on ourselves. And it happened in a very short space of time. And just, I can only speak from a South African point of view. Whatever we think of those Bell Hummels and radicals like yourselves, in 2015, you did it a few decades earlier. But the Fees Must Fall movement students made a huge contribution when they put the issue of the decolonization of the curriculum on the agenda. I think we're a bit hard on ourselves. I think African scholarship is taken seriously. I'll just give you a small example. I see our colleague from China is around. When I go on my Google page, Prof, my Google Scholar page, I'm struck by how articles that I've written in English and in English journal appear in Chinese as well. So clearly, Chinese scholars at universities or wherever took the time to take an article that was of interest to them and decided to translate it themselves. And while I'm on that point, China's Africa branch, the Africa branch of the Chinese government is bigger than the entire foreign service of Germany. The Africa branch. Now listen, you're either very important or you have something they want, if they have so many people devoted to it. And I was not taking a stab at China, but I must underscore, there are the Prof. Mutambaras of the world that with confidence take on their peers from these luminary universities in the world. And if there's one thing that these places that we went to abroad taught us, is to be confident and go and take on a field and make sure you stand your ground. But don't go and waffle, back it up. Last but by no means least, esteemed guests, founder and senior director of the Oasis Christian Assembly, also an IT specialist in his own right, Mr. Andrew Mutondoro. The floor is yours. And I've noticed one thing about priests and pastors. They really dress up. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Che. You've truly been the best, and I've enjoyed how you've been an actuator. And hearing me say pastors have the best, the secret is marrying the right wife. So for me, yes, I do dress sharp, but I'll tell you that I don't choose what I dress in. I gave up long ago because when I chose what to wear, nobody noticed. Even if I bought a new suit or new clothes, everything that my wife has chosen and she puts on, everyone will be commenting. So,
thank you very much. That was a brilliant contribution.
And so I'm really thankful that my wife is here with me. So she's dressed. So you dress me sharp. Thank you so much. Okay.
Madam, do you want to come and do the speech?
I'd like to thank Professor Mutambara for this great privilege and opportunity. I don't take it lightly to share some words here today. The last time he invited me out, the last book launch, unfortunately I was not available. I'm thankful that today I'm available. And if you know Professor Arthur, if he invites anybody, so I can leave it to your imagination what kind of pastor I am. But you can use your own imagination. But one thing is certain. I will start off by saying, Professor Arthur, very well done, very well done. And very well done. And when he gave me the invitation, and I looked at the guest list, it was professor from professor to professor. What did I look at? Said, wonderful. I said, wonderful. I'm not a professor. But one thing is certain. Arthur and I go back a long way. We're at Zimbabwe at the same time and studying different subject matters. But something was very common between us in that we are fearless, confident, and bold. And that has probably brought us together. And I call it FCB, fearless, confident, and bold. You must be confident enough to be who you are and to push and go for your passions. Never feel inferior to anybody. Never feel inferior to anybody. There's something in you that the world needs. Never feel inferior to anybody. And I'm so thankful that we have that in common. And I'll say something. There was a university professor in business. And I was taking his business class. And I was teaching the students. And I was teaching them on financial management and how to become millionaires. And there was a student in that class who kept twiddling his thumbs and laughing while the professor was speaking. So the professor got angry and singled him out and said, you, I've been speaking here and you've been twiddling and laughing, you'll be paying attention. Stand up, you must pay attention. You fail my course. And the student said, okay, you're teaching us how to become a millionaire. And he said to him, excuse me, sir, are you a millionaire? And he said, I mean a millionaire in US dollars. And the professor said, no, I'm not. Then he said to him, I am a millionaire in US dollars many times over. Let me teach you how to become a millionaire. The professor was teaching what he was not. And it's one of the problems we have, especially here in Africa. People teach what they are not. And I want to say, Professor Arthur, you've done well. I've known you from that time there as students at University of Zimbabwe. We went through some interesting things which I can go through now. And I'm not a member of the Cambridge Mafia or the Oxford Mafia, and it's good I've met them here. But I want to do something about Professor. Yes, these mafiosos, with their secretary, social secretary, Professor Landsberg. But I want to bring something about Professor Arthur that is very important. Indeed, he's a man of great intellectual giftings, no doubt about that. But he's a great listener, and he believes in the value that everyone is of value. And he will, if he thinks you've got an answer, he's going to ask you. He's got enough humility to ask. But he doesn't just go to everybody. He goes to somebody who he thinks has got substance. And I happen to follow in that category several times, and would ask me some things. And as intellectually advanced as he is, I would argue and share information. And several times we bring things that there is value in everybody. Everybody's got a part to play. You need to weld something. Not everybody's a welder. If I gave Professor Arthur a welding machine right now, I am certain he won't know how to use it. But there's somebody who's a welder who can put it together. We need to understand. So when I look at here what we've done in this book for Professor Arthur, I'm so blessed in that everyone's got a part to play, and you've demonstrated it. May you continue to do so. One of the biggest problems that we have in Africa is, before I get the gist of that, I'll just say this to you. 3 important statements. To know what is to begin to live. To know how is to begin to succeed. To know why is to begin to reign. We need to live life at the reigning level. Unfortunately, many don't live at the reigning level. At the reigning level, it doesn't matter what the prevailing circumstances are, be they political, be they economic, the weather. If you're in a rainy level, you will succeed regardless of the circumstances that are there. It doesn't matter how many bombs are going over. You will succeed. So to know what? As I look at this book on digital control systems, and Professor asked me to come in here, and I said to him, you want me to come and speak? Because what am I going to say? Then he said to me, I know you. You are a pastor, you never fail to find something to say. But most importantly, you think outside the box. We have always thought outside the box. To know what is begin to live. What are we living for? So, Professor, I was so blessed that in this book, I'm so inspired to go through it. Because something very powerful you said in there. And I think it's a lesson for everybody. You made it very clear that there are other people who have written books in this place. You have gone through those books, but they are lacking. In other words, there's something which is not there that you just say you've got it or you're going to find it. And you got it, something is not there. Then you went further and told us that aerospace vehicles, you give several of them, and said there's none in Africa. And you actually said, maybe Mutambara should move forward. And exactly, to know what is to begin to live. We need to be a people, entrepreneurs, professors, academics, government, whatever it is, who know what it is that we should do. And he came up with this book to solve that problem. And I like it because this book is being used at University of Pennsylvania, Georgia Tech, all those places. Because you saw that gap. And like we were at university, we were never limited. We always felt that we are Zimbos, but we're going to conquer this world. Our mindset was Zimbabwe, the world is small enough for us to dominate. It's a mindset I have to this very day. And because it's small enough for us. It's got nothing to do with it coming from. To know what is to begin to live. And you made it very clear that we need to do what? To go and come out with these things. What does that mean? We need to become producers. We have a problem in Africa. We are not producers. Produce ideas, produce solutions, and you produce this book. We need to be producers. One of my favorite newspapers, which I make sure I read every week, is the China Daily. If it's China Daily, it's amazing. If you see, Chinese are driven to be producers. They're driven to find solutions. If they can't do it now, they say we're going to do it. And in Chinese, they don't have the word crisis. The Chinese word for crisis is opportunity. So if you ever see any place where it says there's a crisis, for them, opportunity, opportunity, opportunity. While we're busy saying crisis, 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 they are busy saying opportunity, 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 opportunity. And something we must do. And I like my Chinese brothers smiling there. Yes, it's a mindset. It's a culture that we must have. To know what is to begin to succeed, to begin to live. We have too many people in this continent. They're not living, they are alive, but I call them the living dead. They have no impact. Professor Agbo and myself and a few others here, hopefully the majority, but I don't know. We have a different breed. To know what is to begin to what? To live. We need to begin to live. And produce that book. And we must live with the mentality that this world is small enough for us. I remember one time when Professor Arthur was a student leader at university, and we used to do, politics started a long time ago, we strategized some things. Somebody arose, I don't know if he's student, somebody arose within the university community student body, was also a part of the student executive, and they were going to move a vote of no confidence on Agbo, as we called him there, not Professor, Agbo. And they were quite, I don't know if you know, they were quite advanced, they were busy strategizing. And look like they're making progress. Now I'm retiring to my room at university. Now I'm retiring to my room. I want to sleep. Knock on my door. Now, when strategists, since we were part of the campaign, it made sure that this feedback, I become a subwarden. Hallelujah. So I was there. So I was in my own special room as subwarden. He comes to my room. It was late. I was tired. He knocks. Mutis. I said, hey, you know about this? I said, yeah, I know about this. So I said, how do we save this? Because I knew that the guys, how do we save this thing? So we're talking a lot. Then I said, they've been too much in politics. Look, the guys, they want jobs. They're finishing university, they want jobs. Let's do something new. Then how about you organize, what is organizing in Zimbabwe? How about you organize a careers day, whereby we bring in the people from industry. They'll come and showcase what they have and their job opportunities, and they start recruiting. Those were back in those days whereby you were assured of a job most of the time. He says, oh, that's a brilliant idea. So we started exchange. So I was talking, and I was busy writing. I think once I finished at about almost dawn. For people like myself, there was then time to sleep after that. So he said I will pick up this discussion later during the day to finalize, fine-tune the tune. But he said, I believe this is an excellent idea because we are both into innovation. I like this. So in the morning, I wake up to go to my lectures. Guess what I see? That these flyers that have already been printed. The man he was my secretary then because I was dictating, hallelujah, and he was taking. And he put now, others very good in English. Then he put his English there, whatever. And he'd already done it. What am I trying to say? This is the example of we must die empty. Nothing still in there. It requires sacrifice. And he produced it. And guess what? It was a resounding success. And we moved so quickly. I think it was less than a week to get that. So by the time they wanted to think of a vote of no confidence, the thing was so successful that it was like, hey, I go. It was killed. To know what? It's to begin to live. Don't look down on anybody. They will give you value which you need to go forward. So he brought me here. Yes, I'm a pastor, absolutely. I'm proud of it. But I'm not an ordinary pastor. Very different. You've got to think outside the box. So know what to begin to live. So this book, we must push it. And I said, no, Arthur, will I understand this book? He says, this is the word he used. You'll be able to plod through it with your computer knowledge. So I'm going to buy one and plod through it. So that was on that. Number two, is I get ready to finish. Number two, know how is to begin to succeed. We need to know how to do things. It requires to research. It requires to try. We will fail something sometimes. It really doesn't matter. But we must know how so we can begin to what? To succeed. Africa must be successful. And this book inspires me and everybody. But hang on. We've got to put things in writing. Long ago, some musicians were complaining in Zimbabwe. They were complaining, they say, why is it that the police army band, they don't sing music they don't sing music of the Zimbabwean musicians? And the answer was very chilly. At that time, Zimbabwean musicians, they don't write their music. They write the lyrics. They don't write the music. If you write the music tones and everything else in the music language, even if somebody cannot speak your language, you give them. They just pick out manuscript, they'll start playing. With this book, I honestly believe that you've launched Africa in this world on a new platform, whereby people, as you said, they must know how to do things. Even I myself, I'm a professor by divine appointment of spiritual engineering. I'm about to fight. I'm going to read the book and try and figure out, hey, how can I get some things out there? Because we need to know how. So at least all these other people that spoke before me are so blessed by your speaking. Thank you so much, and I think I'm about to finish now. Number three, to know why is to begin to reign. To know why we can do things different. Why are you on this chapter? Why? It's my humble submission. We need to create an environment that works. Make people's lives better. Use what we have for the betterment of society. Look down upon nobody. What you have inside, I've also written books myself, but in a way I am able to add value. It's important. And I've taught them, you are greatness in motion. I believe it entirely, I'm greatness in motion. Each one of us here is greatness in motion. Regardless of any of those things, we need to have an environment that works. And this book is part of it. I hope we'll see drones coming out because of this book. I hope we'll see other exciting things. I hope we'll have non-broke professors. I hope, well, I have to end. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Pastor, please pray for me. Dean, on a very serious note, I always suspected that Arthur was a millionaire. And to hear it from his pastor. No. And it brings me to this point. He's been prodding me all night on a serious note. Listen to the price of this book. Pastor, you're right. By the way, madam, I've got a color coding problem. It clashes. So just share the memo of the dress code and everything. Online, the book costs. I don't know what the Zik equivalent is. So for those of you who don't know what the Zik is, it's the latest currency Zimbabwe launched on Friday, last week, to compete with the dollar. Online, 3,200 rand. You heard me correctly, not 320 rand, 3,200. Tonight, if you buy it, all you millionaires, discount the price, 1,450. Please be generous and buy for some of us poor professors, because not all of us are millionaires. The book is available tonight. I hope you're happy now that I've said people must buy the book. You've been waiting for that moment. That brings us to the end of our show. Prof. Moyai, I will never forget about you. I know where my bread is buttered. You've been very patient, all of you, our esteemed audience. Let's take one round of questions. From the clouds, let it rain, and from our audience here. One round of questions just because of time. Is that okay, Prof? Professor Mutambara, I'm going to stay close to you now. The pastor revealed your wealth status. Let me start with my left. Politically. If you're not politically left, don't raise your hand. Gentleman number one, I'm going to take one round. Number one, going right.
On the left, clearly.
Yeah, what's left of the left? Okay, there's the center. Number two, the political center. Yeah, I wrote a piece about the GNU yesterday, so I have to defend it. Let me now go to the ultra right. 3, 4. Any online? Any online questions? Can they buy it at a discount rate as well? Yes. In fact, I was going to overrule him. Yes. Yes, they can get it at a discounted rate because they are online, but they're part of the show. Okay. Sir, introduce yourself briefly. You don't have to declare how much money you have, but if you want to, go ahead.
Ademola Yusuf from University of South Africa. I've been in control field for more than 23 years, so what the author has written is wonderful, and I've also gone through the book. The question is that a few years back and currently,
Just raise the level of this.
yeah, there's a drive for Africanization of knowledge. And I would also like to see a situation whereby we remove the traditional examples that is also relevant to Africans amplified. Maybe in the future revisions, that could be incorporated. Like Professor Gomez said, that when you go to Sri Lanka or India subcontinent, there's always a reason why people living in the continent have a preference to picking books that are very close to indigenous books. It's just because of the way we narrate story. They find identity. So I think in the future revision of the book, we want to see more African identity. So I want to thank you.
Excellent contribution. And by the way, Prof. Gomez was not talking about the Guptas in the Zondo Commission, please. Not Atul and the brother. Scholars. Madam.
So thank you so much for
Introduce yourself just brief.
Yeah, sure. So I am Bopi Zoe Mafoka. I'm with UNDP. And the point that I really want to kind of press on is it was raised by Prof. Mutambara, and he said something about the need to incorporate ethics into control systems and make it a part of the fourth industrial revolution, which, you know, as someone working within the humanities, within international relations, international debt, that is of peak importance given how much the UN High Commissioner on Human Rights has been really pushing, you know, trying to get that point across. But particularly as, you know, we've seen the trajectory with which AI has developed, the speed at which it's developed, I think it's of particular importance given the super election year. And we've seen how generative AI has been used to influence and cause misinformation, disinformation within the public. So my question is really about how we can strategically implement ethical considerations into control systems, emphasizing digital resilience amidst these growing apprehensions. So yeah, so that's kind of my question.
Is that it?
That's it.
No. We have to understand the balance of power. If you want to go again, I'll give you. But I like your point about the, how do you describe it, a super year of elections. 64 countries are going to the polls this year, close to 300 billion people eligible to vote, including some small country there in the Atlantic. They're also going to the polls. Right. Three.
Everybody, good evening. Just speak up a bit. Professor Mutambara, thank you for the contribution. Thank you for the knowledge that you've shared. My name is Devo Holaki Momela. I've recently graduated in Shanghai University in mechatronic engineering. So my supervisor was a specialist in smart structures and active control. So I'm actually familiar with the subject of this book. I'm actually very interested in it. My question is, so does this show like a demand of the University of Johannesburg implementing the School of Mechatronic Engineering and Automation, given Professor Mutambara's contribution, and also how we can look at intelligent materials into incorporating them into control systems and vibration control. Thank you.
Thank you. In fact, that title that you introduced yourself was quite intimidating. Dean, also have a crack at that question about whether there's whatever school you just mentioned. Number 4, Madam, take your time. It's the balance of forces.
Thank you. My name is Mafosi Badremi.
I come from a background of living in
Speak up a bit.
also working with authors and also advocating for change on the grassroots level. Like when before COVID, I was running a Saturday school trying to change how our kids are exposed in the classroom environment. So I'm very much delighted to be part of this, and in the light of everyone that's spoken and highlighted in trying to find ourselves not being part of the game, but sitting at the table making decisions. This book, to me, I'm actually trying to, from this, getting something from the professor, actually challenging him to try and, since he's going to be writing the books, to actually have a book where we will start teaching our kids from the primary level so that we are able to change what we are trying to achieve, because most of us, we become exposed at a stage where I think our minds are a bit rusty. So we should start down there when they are very curious and are not limited in exploring. I say this because if I may say I have a grandchild that's only 4, and I have exposed him to a lot of things, and at his age, the things he knows, he doesn't go to a multiracial kindergarten, goes to a local, but his English, not that English isn't that important, but exposing him to things, now we have an advantage that everything is online. And I feel that the things that are happening, it's always an advantage that we had not done. It was an advantage that we don't have to go to mainstream education. Our education is work. And we are now at a position that we can actually control what our kids consume in terms of education, now that we can go like homeschooling. And I advocate that, like I spoke to my son and the mother, that he can go to the local school, but then we can actually educate him, because we are going to control what he consumes, instead of relying on what the government gives us, because that's something else. So that's the challenge that I'm putting forward to
control systems. Great stuff. Prof. Mutambara, I'm the chair. I'm the actuator. 3 minutes. Nobody observed the 3-minute rule, and I think you actually said to all your friends 8 minutes, and you told me you told them 3 minutes. I'm now instructing that you have 3 minutes, not per question, globally.
Okay, thank you so very much. I'll be very brief. Africanization of knowledge, very important. But you see, science, mathematics, engineering is a bit tricky. Laplace transform is Laplace transform. A differential equation is a differential equation. So what we need to do is to say, okay, the examples we use must be African. The problems we try to solve must be African. The application we're pushing for must be African. So point taken, and we'll try to do that in the book, but you know, there's no science for the poor people. Science is science. That's why I work with MIT, NASA, and UPenn, because I must be at the frontiers of knowledge for me to be consequential. What I then do is to make sure I address African problems, I use African examples, and push African applications. Ethical consideration is very important. And that's why in the next book, where we talk about AI in the global south, we're going to emphasize the importance of ethics. We're going to emphasize the importance of getting the Africans being players, being producers of AI. You know, there are 3 things for the African in terms of AI. 1, we must adopt and use, which is good. But more importantly, we must also produce apps as Africans. But even more important, semiconductor physics. The physical devices, the chips that drive AI. NVIDIA, the company that is key in this area, has a market share of $2.26 trillion. One company. One AI hardware company called NVIDIA, and of course Taiwan is also doing very well in this area. Our collective GDP is about $2.5 trillion. So one AI company is equal to the entirety of the African collective GDP. So we must be players in adoption and use of AI. We must be players in developing AI applications, but most significantly, let's find a way to be also players in the hardware behind AI. But we're going to push the ethics. We're going to do the work on the ethics around Global South. Now, new subjects, I think the Dean will answer that, whether we need any new departments. But insofar as we're concerned, control systems is already applicable in 8 classical fields: mechanical, electrical, chemical, industrial. So whether we have a new mechatronics and robotics department, I think the Dean can speak to that. But even in the current departments, we can take care of a lot of things around AI and mechatronics. Primary school level, it's very important that we start teaching not control systems, but AI. At kindergarten level, the concepts of AI at kindergarten level, the concepts of AI at primary school level, the concepts of computer science at kindergarten level. And then, of course, controls may be a bit general, but I think AI and computer science much earlier on, primary school, kindergarten, secondary school, then into the university. A few remarks on, oh, by the way, Chris, my colleagues also went to better schools than you and I. My friend here, Brian, is from the Harvard Business School. Brian has one page, he didn't speak, he refused to speak. Brian is my classmate from UZ. Harvard Business School.
What do you mean better?
You ask him. Then, my friend Roy went to Cranfield Business School. These are serious players. Anyway, I wanted just to show that I went to school with people who went to better schools than you and I. Anyway, law and technology, something was said about law.
Recorded somewhere.
No, the whole series are recorded.
The law must move with technology. We need laws for the driverless car. We need laws for the robots. So law and technology is a big area of research. Law is very conservative by definition. So the lawyers must move with technology, which brings me to the point that I was raised earlier on. We need what we call Renaissance men and women. An engineer who understands the Constitution, history, and philosophy. An engineer who understands the difference between constitutionalism and constitutionality. A historian who can do some coding. An economist who can define AI. For us to be shot callers and bowlers in this revolution, we must be Renaissance men and women. The silo, I'm a superstar physicist, I'm a superstar lawyer, I'm a superstar, geography major, won't cut it. We need multiple disciplines in the same person. You can still be a specialist, but the broader, the better. Very important. Professor Mboa, augmentation intelligence. Human augmentation is an application. What we're saying is very important. We're saying, this is about, is AI going to take over the world? Are robots going to take over the world? The answer is no. Why don't you have artificial intelligence and the person working together? The machine and the person working together is called augmentation, human augmentation, or human 2.0. So the future belongs to the person and the AI working together. Not the AI working against the person, or the person working against AI. So human augmentation is very important, but we phrase it as human augmentation as a way to say that is the best way forward vis-a-vis AI. AI should not be a threat to the person. The person and the technology must work together under what we call human augmentation or human 2.0. So I just thought I could take advantage of my presence to answer some of those things around what was raised in the group here. But I rest my case there so I can take more questions.
More questions.
And it took more than 3 minutes.
No, you did. Dean, do you want to just have a crack at that?
No, I think for my
the
part,
school.
Prof. Mutambara has answered the question. The big issue is this is multidisciplinary. So it's not only in a specific field. As you said, you can practice it in all the engineerings. And yeah, in terms of, mechatronics and so on, I know Lucky, so he's one of our students. Lucky, we can talk more. Thank you.
I know the dean. I know the dean also has a passion, pastor in religion, and I'm saying that because I noticed that our main speaker tonight, a pastor, and 2 former deans, are the only ones who are wearing ties tonight. I mean, it just struck me that it was all the powerful people. It's been a rich session. There's one thing I want to take away from this. Don't be intimidated by Professor Mutambara. It's humans who are making these machines, man. Don't come and tell us that the human and the machine will augment and we're only at 2.0. It's the humans making these machines, man. There cannot be 4IR without us human beings. They can try and make that robot to try and dance better than me. Let him come. Bring that robot. It's not going to happen. So there cannot be 4IR or even 5IR about the humans. But there will be winners and far too many losers in Africa. And we've got the response. And it speaks to the ethics as well. Professor Mutambara, it's been brilliant. It's been great. And I now hand over. You wanted to comment on that? Please do. No. This is Oxford Society. I'm ready for you.
No, I'm not commenting. I'm just making my final remarks.
No, David, he must still speak.
It's okay.
Okay.
I'm trying to
Go
say
for
that from Maxwell emphasized the need to make a difference. And as I conclude, I thought I was going to give another set of questions, but since I'm not going to get any new questions, I want to just part on this part in short. You know, we all are experts, successful in our fields, and some of you can say, I'm a superstar engineer, I'm a superstar lawyer, I'm a superstar businessman. I think it's important that we understand that our personal brands are a function of our national brand. Our personal brands are a function of the continental brand. You will never be respected as an African until Africa has done well as a continent. You will never be respected as a Zimbabwean until Zimbabwe has done well as a country. When I used to go to the World Economic Forum and talk a lot, they say, "Where are you from?" And I refuse to answer. I tell them I'm coming out of MIT, McKinsey, and no, we know that. Resume. Where are you from? I don't answer. Eventually I say, I'm from Zimbabwe. Then I come on. If you are from Zimbabwe, how come there's cholera in Harare? If you are from Zimbabwe, how come there's poverty in Zimbabwe? No, Mutambara, you are no superstar. You are judged by the success or lack of it of your country. You are judged by the success or lack of it of the continent. My superstardom is devalued by the bankruptcy of my country. I thank you very
much. I'll conclude later with one sentence. It's now a privilege for somebody to do a synthesis for us. Colleague, friend, somebody that I owe money to. Professor David Monyai, we come a long way. We met at WITS. He heads up the Confucius Institute and the Center for Africa Studies. So please join me in welcoming the Chinese and Professor Monyai. One day we'll all be Chinese.
Thank you. I think it has been indeed a long night. It's one of those sessions where you try to absorb a number of issues. And I've been asking myself a number of questions in terms of, I know there are people online. My task is quite simple. Before I get into the concluding, Madam, the question that you asked about creche, primary, high school. I was once one of the delegates to Singapore in one of the universities. Singaporean were looking at why is it that students from poorer backgrounds perform badly than those who are coming from middle class and rich backgrounds. And one of the things that they looked at was the question of just language, the vocabulary, using technology just to check a kid in a crash based on class, that those from poorer backgrounds, their vocabulary is very limited. So it doesn't really matter how much, where they go in at a certain age in their lives, best schools, best universities, they still perform poor than those who come from better backgrounds, as in financial. So what they came up with was to bring in psychologists, engineers from all backgrounds, multidisciplinary, and design these small gadgets for kids. And one of the reasons is that their parents spend more time outside, at work, come back home late, tired, unable to have spent time with the kids, speak them to improve their vocabulary. And these gadgets has much more richer vocabulary, help these kids throughout the day and night as they play. And they could see the improvement. So yeah, indeed, we need to really think. Tonight, I think what Professor Arthur Mutambara has done is to remind us of what is possible. Just to listen to a number of people who have spoken. I mean, this is in line with the University of Johannesburg, interdisciplinary. Yes, I work at the University of Johannesburg. To move into an interdisciplinary way of teaching, communicating, have engineers and people from business, from church, and international relation, and all sorts of backgrounds combined to form that interdisciplinary conversation. There are a number of questions that, if time would have allowed, I would have asked, are we playing God? We're now we're creating ourselves. But perhaps that needs a session on its own. What does it really mean? Do we need to produce politicians, robots? Do we need politicians? Do we really need professors? So I think we'll need a number of lectures and more books coming out to really fulfill that kind of the new future, whether it's fifth industrial revolution or sixth or the seventh. So tonight, we really thank Professor Arthur Mutambara. I've known him for more than 2 decades, and he has never let us down. Every time he produces books, and the way he communicates it is quite rich. He's an engineer. He remains an engineer. We come from social sciences. At times we do push him around on certain technical issues. And I remember very well one area in a day where he really pushed us around. And I remember saying, Professor Arthur Mutambara, please really take our students to the moon. We want to see those robots. And I take that back. I really like the manner in which you have done in terms of the composition of your speakers. And I really want to take this opportunity to thank people behind the scenes, that we are not the stars and standing on podium. Professor Mutambara's office, the staff that works extremely hard to put together what we have. We have technical people that made this possible. They were here an hour, 2 hours before us to ensure that we have people online, make it possible. I would also want to take the opportunity to thank the university itself and for availing these beautiful facilities, and all esteemed guests, speakers, and some flew from Rwanda overseas to come here, and they were here much more earlier, taking a cup of coffee to ensure that they resist flight fatigue. And our chair, Professor Chris Landsbeck, for a wonderful chairing of this session. And more importantly and lastly, to Professor Arthur Mutambara. Please keep the work that you are doing, teaching, writing, documenting. And as Chinua Achebe said, when he was criticized when his book came out, he said, if you have issue with my book, write your own. And I think what Arthur is doing, it's quite important. With so many lessons on the fourth industrial revolution, at times I'm concerned that our notion of fourth industrial revolution, particularly on the African continent, we have a tendency of announcing these terms and talking about it in a way of declaration. We declare fourth industrial revolution. Other regions, particularly one that I follow quite closely, China, they do the fourth industrial revolution first, then they talk about it. So we talk about it first, and then we try to do it. By the time we really start, the world will be in the fifth industrial revolution. So, but I hope with this kind of discussions, we'll be going. Let me end with quite of a joke. I don't know how serious it was, and I don't mean any issue, that an African brother went to China, very understood the Bible, and met a Chinese brother, and they said, my brother, do you know Jesus? And they said, the Chinese responded by saying, my brother, I don't know Jesus. But tell me more about Jesus. I'll make Jesus for you. So we need to balance and be pragmatic, and I really think that this tonight is the start, that we need to be practical in what we do, so that it does not end here, Professor Arthur Mutambara. We see certain elements that take this forward. Chair, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. By the way, Prof. Munoz, I really like your Mao Zedong suit. I really like, I mean, you wear your work. Jesus is available to sign copies of the book immediately after this. Professor Mutambara is ready to sign some books after this. You've been a wonderful, wonderful crowd, audience. Dean, thank you for staying for so long. Former Vice Dean, The good thing is I know that it's not too busy right now at the Pretoria-Joburg border. I mean, this time of the night, the flow of traffic is not that bad. So I don't think you will be held up tonight. And I know you have your visa, for Pretoria. Oh, no, sorry, your Joburg one-day visa for. No, on a serious note, Professor Mutambara, keep inspiring us, our friend. I must actually tell you, it was fascinating listening to Pastor. The two of you sound alike. Now I know where this thing is coming from. This like preachy stuff or style of lecturing of you. Thanks, Pastor. Now I can sort of, connect the dots. Well done, my friend, mentor. 33 years is a long time. Let's continue to take up the challenge. And I just want to leave all of you with a story. And incidentally, don't take us Harvard and Cambridge and Oxford people too seriously. I mean, it's just delusions of grandeur. We just want to feel important. That's it. There are some really beautiful, brilliant, fantastic universities that we all come from, including in the continent. So don't take this Oxford Mafia too seriously. But I just want to say that I remember vividly 33 years ago when I met Prof. Mutambara, myself, Dean, as the South Africa at Large Rhodes Scholar. Same year, exactly the same year, same age. I'm actually 2 months older than Prof. Mutambara. And he should start to show more respect. But I just sometimes feel that, I feel undermined. But I want to share this with you, that Prof. Adebayo, Prof. Mutambara, and myself, we literally set a goal, and we did declare a declaration that we're going to go out there and we're going to go and dominate our spheres. Who am I to judge myself? It's not about me at all. But this man has not just talked a big game. He has played a big game. He set the rules of the game. In fact, he created new games. Arthur Mutambara, what a privilege to know someone like that. I know you brought your fan club here tonight. Thanks for coming to cheer him on. We have some designers in the room, well done, fashion designers, who really make their husbands just look like, wealthy. They just ooze wealth. Thank you very much. I also assume that's a UNDP contingent. Thanks for coming to support your boss. Don't mess around with your career. Colleagues from elsewhere, I've always had respect for Zimbabweans. I've always had some respect for Zimbabweans, and I'm not scared to say the one outstanding legacy that Robert Mugabe left was in the area of education. There's no doubt. Mr. Dlamini, good to see you again, my friend. What happened in Oxford stays in Oxford. When we went to the King's Arms, still whatever time of the night, shall remain between us. Wonderful. To Professor Mutambara's fantastic staff, well done. And may the work continue, and may you continue to plow the harvest of your fantastic, innovative, unique, brilliant contributions. Professor Mutambara, I think I should stop now. I mean, that's too much. Thank you very much. I don't know about this center, whether they have money, but usually we invite you for drinks. Now, I don't know what's the kind of drinks available. I suspect there will be water at the very least. Whether there's Holy Communion, Pastor, I don't know. I just don't know how strong we're going tonight. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Drive safely. And for those of you traveling abroad tonight to Pretoria, good luck. Thank you. Bye-bye.